not smiling. Okay,
No, I
so
am.
it's now 7 o'clock, and I will open the Wellfleet Select Board public meeting of Tuesday, September 24th, 2019. We will begin with announcements, open session, and public comments. Please note that public comments must be brief. The board will not deliberate or vote on any matter raised solely during announcements and public comment. Are there any comments from the board?
Yes. At our last meeting, our COA director announced that there was going to be a flu clinic on October 4th. There is not going to be a flu clinic on October 4th at Outer Cape Health. However, there is going to be one on September 28th in Wellfleet, and subsequently there will be other flu clinics in Wellfleet, and Outer Cape Health will contact the administrator's office, and perhaps we can announce them at meetings and put them on the website.
Suzanne announced that the October 4th clinic was happening here, not at Outer Cape Health.
Here?
Yes, here on October 4th.
And isn't Outer Cape Health doing it?
I would assume so, but I haven't heard that it's been canceled.
I have, and I confirmed it today with Outer Cape Health.
That one is happening at their facility or at this facility?
Wherever they're doing it, that's where it's happening.
Okay. We'll double check and put the right
Yeah.
information on the website.
Yes, and as far as I know now, it's the 28th.
We'll check on it.
And I have one more thing, which is to thank Warren Silva for his many, many years of work at the DPW. He is now retiring.
Many years, yes. Thank you. Everybody should. How long did he work? Do you know?
Years.
A long time.
Yeah.
Courtney, you had something to say?
Yeah, this is just a reminder that the 2020 Resident Artist Beach Sticker contest is, the application is open until October 1st at 12 noon. There's information on the website. It's a program that's a collaboration between the Cultural District, the beach administrator, and the gallery folks here at the COA. So if you're a resident who's got good photography of Wellfleet or who enjoys painting, pastels, any sort of image you'd like to see featured on a beach sticker next year, feel free to apply.
Okay. Helen, did you have something else to add? Okay. So I want to read a letter that a family wrote, Marianne Morrison wrote after her mother died, and it's in praise of the Council on Aging and how they helped her. So it says, "Dear Terry, Linda, and Sally, and everyone, on behalf of the entire Morrison clan, thank you so very much for your care, compassion, empathy, kindness, and every other good word that comes to mind of my mother and grand and great-grandmother, Marie Morrison. Marie always said that if it were not for the senior center and the amazing people who worked and played there, that she could not have been able to live in Wellfleet, especially in the winter when Cape visitors were scarce. You always treated her with respect and love, and it showed in her enthusiastic accolades she was constantly bestowing upon you all. Please accept this gift. There was quite a large donation in memory of her, and do something fun with it. Best." There's Marianne, she interchanged those, Morrison. So just to, I don't think is Suzanne here, she's not in the back anymore, but anyhow, anybody else from the COA, thank you for all your good work, and it shows. Any comments or announcements from the audience? Yes. Please state your name as you go to the microphone.
Alfred Picard. I had a question about the ethics on the board for sitting for the shellfish overwintering program, and I realize I'm not going to get an answer, but my question is, if you donate a piece of property to the town of Wellfleet, save a bunch of people money because now they don't have to buy it from the landlord, and then make the rules that govern our shellfish thing, is not considered being too close to the flame, and it should be looked at as far as an ethical problem. I asked the board or our town administrator if we can look into that. My problem is I don't believe you should be able to donate something, which was very nice, and then make the rules to run how it's going to be used through shellfish changes. Thank you.
Thank you. We did look into it and talked to Koppelman and Page Do you want to?
I did, Alfred had mentioned that he was going to bring this up, so I did talk to KP Law late this afternoon. Under the conflict of interest laws within the state of Massachusetts, the act of giving the donation does not create a conflict here because the donor does not have a financial interest in the shellfishing industry. So their conflict only arises with regards to the purchase of the Hilta Trust property.
Okay. Anyone else from the audience? All right. Nope, that's just scratching. Okay. So moving on to shellfish, change of shellfish regulations, 7.19.5. And this is in reference of overwintering of equipment on grants.
I'll be recusing myself from this.
Okay. Thank you, Michael.
And Madam Chair,
Yes?
may I state that neither I nor any member of my family, nor any person I am in business with, is in any way affected by the shellfish industry in a financial way. I just want to say that after the last statement.
Well, you can also see where people may see that there's an overlap.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay. So Nancy, you want to introduce the first regulation?
So this is requesting a change in how we require aquaculture gear left to be left or not left out on grants during the wintertime. Up until now, we have allowed it with a very simple contract, and we've had some problems with lost gear because of ice, and we took it to Shellfish Advisory, and Shellfish Advisory made some minimal changes, saying that the department should, first of all, be able to enforce as it was written. I don't know if I'm making sense, but anyway, the Shellfish Department thought that we could do better than what the Shellfish Advisory Board came up with. We're also very cognizant of being one segment of users of the harbor, and there are many others. So we wanted to really take into consideration what the Marina Advisory Committee had also said and try and strike some sort of balance. We need a year-round oyster market, and we need people to be able to make a living year-round. So I understand the need to keep oysters out on grants, and I definitely think it's the way to go, but how can we accommodate that without having negative impacts on other users? And I came up along with my team. You know, we really debated this long and hard, and even after the last Shellfish Advisory Board meeting, we came back and tried to figure, is there a nuance or two in here that we could add that would make it perhaps a little easier for some people. But it is a big change, and it's open for discussion. I did on Friday, as soon as I had redone this memo and the next one that we'll discuss, I emailed it around to every commercial permit holder, every aquaculture leaseholder, any employees that I had. You know, I emailed it around to the entire shellfishing public on the commercial side with links so that this hearing could serve also as a place for people to air their concerns to you directly so you can hear. And I guess I'm open as well to hearing. I want us all to be successful. That's our goal here. We want to have a thriving shellfishing industry, but we need to also be responsible for how our industry affects others.
Okay. So before we begin with the board, can I assume that who's ever a shellfishing person here or someone involved in it has seen the regulations and the changes? Right, everybody knows what they say and what they read, and if you don't, just ask, but it's good to know what we're talking about. Well, we usually open it up to the board. Does the board have anything to say about it? Any comments? Justina?
Yeah, I want to echo some of Nancy's remarks that it is important to keep open a winter market. It is what we hear from wholesalers, that they need a reliable supply. So it's not just the grants who are able to do winter marketing, but it is helpful to the shellfish, the viability and competitiveness of Wellfleet's shellfish industry as a whole. For us to just disappear from selling to the market in the winter kind of takes us off the radar screen, and it does impact everybody in that sense. So that's one thing. I think winter employment is another. There's a limited number of grants, as I understand it, that are located to be able to overwinter. It's not an enormous amount of racks that are out there. I think Nancy said it was 2,000? And
Last year it was 3,000.
3,000. So
Wait, excuse me, was that in the winter year-round?
In the winter, we have about between 11 and 12,000 in the peak summer months, and but
And
all
three-
but
yeah.
3,000, so about 25% get
Yeah.
left out.
But that's an important source of market of oysters for the market. So I want to echo what Nancy said about the importance to the industry, and I think also Nancy's proposed changes are very balanced in terms of trying to accommodate those needs and also address the concerns we've heard from the harbor master and others that we clean up our act in terms of not providing risks to boaters. And I think I have a lot of faith in the shellfishing industry in Wellfleet, that we can make a lot of improvement on the problems that happened with the ice last year, and get this together.
Helen?
At what point should we read Kathleen Bacon's statement?
If you would like to read it now, you may read it now.
Okay, Kathleen Bacon couldn't be here.
Speak into the mic a little more, they seem
Yeah.
to be low at night.
Okay, am I audible?
Yeah.
Okay. Kathleen Bacon couldn't be here tonight, but she made a very clear statement regarding this, which I'm going to read because she deserves to be represented. I have to add, however, that her statement was made before we got, I think, 3 or 4 letters from people in the shellfishing community about this subject, which were sent. One of them was from the Shellfish Advisory Committee that met on this last Tuesday for the second time. And she, when she made this statement, she hadn't read any of those documents. Okay, so this is from the 8/27/2019 meeting. Kathleen said, this is verbatim transcription, so it's a little informal. She said, this is a big regulation change, and she is 100% in agreement with the Harbor Master and the Marina Advisory Committee on this. The Marina Advisory Committee advised to have everything taken out in the winter. Bacon said she considers herself an environmentalist who has lived here all her life and is watching what this equipment is doing in our harbor and our waterways, or what it is doing to the marine life. She is very interested in seeing what the sonar study puts upon the bulkhead up at the pier, and she thinks that everyone would be shocked at how much abandoned equipment is out in the water. She said she will not support leaving any kind of equipment out in the harbor or our waterways over the winter months when the town gets ice. She said she will not support a regulation that does not state that anybody that is a shellfisherman in Wellfleet, that every piece of equipment belonging to them, every bag, every piece of rebar, every zip tie has to have a name tag on it. She wants to know who it belongs to. She said this stuff is killing us. It is killing the marine life. It's killing our water quality. She said the shellfish industry has gone from picking in the wild when she was growing up here to an industry that is a $6.5 million a year. Let's get responsible. She asked the shellfish community to be responsible and respectful to the environment and the industry.
Madam Chair, through you. Because Kathleen sort of announced her comments, there wasn't a chance to talk about them last meeting. And I think that I respect that she's an environmentalist, but an incremental change to the regulations and evaluate how it's going is more important than slamming down the hammer in 1 year. I'm not sure what she means by this stuff is killing us, it's killing the marine life. What marine life? It's killing our water quality. I don't know what the data is on that. I think her passion definitely comes through in her statement, but I think we can meet her concerns with an incremental change as Nancy has proposed.
So I want to hear from, so there's a lot of people here.
Yeah, but I have things to say.
Okay, good. Hold on, hold on. I want to hear from the shell fishermen first, please. So I want to hear from one person representing the Shellfish Advisory Board. I know at least one is here. I want to hear from one person who overwinters, no, not overwinters, sorry, who sells oysters during the winter or any other shellfish, and one person for these articles and one person for not for these articles. How's that? So how about we start with the one person I know? Not really. I know a lot of people. Zach, do you want to represent the Shellfish Advisory Board since you take minutes, or do you want to do that? You don't have to. I'm putting you on the spot. I'm sure somebody else, there's plenty of people.
So Zach Dixon, shellfisherman, Wellfletian, member of the Shellfish Advisory Board. Basically, the board, as you know, recommended to bring the gear height restriction in the winter down to 6 inches rather than 8, or 4 to 6 inches. And the sentiment behind that was that the rules exist, the rules that exist need to have a chance to be enforced before they're changed drastically. So there's a lot of discussion about that.
So I'm going to interrupt you. And how are they not being enforced?
So making sure that the racks are pumped down to the level that the regulation states.
Okay. Got it, okay.
Right, so that was the main thrust of it, is that the people at the meeting were saying that over their experience over years, that the racks that are pumped down to the proper level are much less likely to go anywhere. And the ones that did get away are the ones that were not pumped down. There were members of the shellfishing community whose racks got away, who stated that they did not pump their racks down.
Okay. And otherwise, because the Shellfish Advisory Board approves these regulations, yes?
Which,
Well, both of them, or do you? Maybe you don't?
no, just so Nancy submitted a couple of specific proposals as to her new proposal. And it's in the minutes of the Shellfish Advisory Board. They took up those issues. I think it was the fee and the 100 rack limit, and they reiterated their stance from the previous meeting that they want to give it a chance, give the current rules, with the exception of changing the height to 4 to 6 inches, a chance, and revisit it in 2020.
So and again, Shellfish Advisory Board, not you, I don't want to put you on the spot. You feel that 3,000 racks during the winter is okay?
The Shellfish Advisory
You feel they
Board.
should not lessen the number of racks?
Yes, they voted to just bring the height restriction down.
Okay,
I believe it
okay.
was, the first time, I believe it was a unanimous vote, and the second time, I think there was 6-1 or similar, but it's in the minutes.
Okay. Anything else you want to add?
I don't think so. Then also, I think I said that in the minutes, there are the specific proposals that Nancy brought to the second meeting of the Shellfish Advisory Board that they looked at as individual kind of items and voted not to recommend those or support those.
Okay. And again, everybody, any questions from the shellfish community about that? Okay. question about what Mr. Dixon's saying. Okay, you got to go to a mic. And state your name, please.
My name's Chris Merle. Zach, you said that they voted that 3,000 racks was acceptable. Was that actually a vote, or is that just your opinion?
No, there was no specific vote, but
Either way.
either way, yeah, they
Okay, so
didn't
then
vote about.
answering that question, you answered it wrong then, when they asked you.
Okay, well,
perhaps,
no, we're just going to get explanations first, and then we can have some discussion, but thank you for that.
Let me just try and clarify. So at I put forth a memo for the Board of Selectmen because I didn't think that the Shellfish Advisory had gone far enough. We decided to have Shellfish Advisory look at the memo that I put together, which they did, but they voted to basically stay exactly with the stance that they had set in the beginning, pumping the racks down to 4 to 6 inches. And then,
And condos.
right, and condos coming off, all condos coming off, thank you. After that vote, I did a different memo, trying to take into consideration basically the pushback that I was getting from Shellfish Advisory and wanting to try and figure out how to be able to accommodate all sorts of different shapes and sizes of businesses that we have here in Wellfleet, but be responsible stewards. So that's the new memo, which I've put in front of you as a counter to what Shellfish Advisory is advising.
Yep, thank you. Okay, anything else? What does that mean? Okay, means good? Okay. Okay, it's not a fist pump? Okay.
I don't understand what that is. It goes to the Shellfish Advisory. If you don't like it, so she brings it to you. I thought it was supposed to go to the Shellfish Advisory, get agreed upon, voted on, and then brought to you. She sidestepped it.
Okay,
May
I got to stop you because you have to go to the microphone at this point.
And
But, okay, so, all right, I really want to hear from the Shellfish people first, and then we're going to go there.
There. You haven't let me speak yet.
No, I said I want to hear from the Shellfish people first. I want to hear what they have to say, because I've read Nancy's thing, and
Before the board?
I don't have to read it before the board.
No, the point is,
Okay, just let
yeah.
We was told that
Chopper speak. Okay.
William Young, shellfisherman here in town for 30-plus years. We was told at the meeting that there was on, I believe, the 9th or the 6th of October was supposed to revisit what we didn't get through for the advisory, and then it would be brought here. This is to you without that, I think.
No.
Okay. So wait, stay up there a second, please, Chopper. You sell shellfish during the winter?
Yep.
Right? How many racks and things do you, feasibly, I mean, if there's a balance here, how many racks do you think you really, really need?
It's kind of a moot point.
All right. Why?
You're just splitting hairs. If everyone's responsible for the stuff, I don't see a limit implied is going to have any difference at all. If you didn't want them to go anywhere, do like other towns do and put augers in and tie them all down. They won't go anywhere. Not limit
Okay.
the amount a man does.
Okay.
And they're still responsible for them. I lost 400 last year. Yeah,
know,
it took us a
yeah.
while to get them back. We got them back. I'm not leaving them this year, but that's my own personal decision.
Okay.
But to limit it, it's kind of like nitpicking individual businesses, putting more of a hardship on a few of them. But they all need to be responsible for them, and I'm not saying they don't. But there's other methods that be done other than pumping them down. East Dam, I know a guy that uses augers and ties every rack down every so far with an auger. They don't go anywhere.
Don't go anywhere, yeah. So, just because I'm fairly naive about shellfishing, how, like, I don't want to get personal, but just in general, how many racks do you think an individual needs to get him through the winter, him or her through the winter?
Well,
It
a
doesn't
single
matter
person
to
on
you.
a single grant, what do they want? There's 1,200 oysters on a rack, so do the math. What's their monthly bills? How many kids they got? How
Yeah.
many people are on the grant?
Okay, all
I think
right.
100 is kind of petty. Another thing by leaving them out there is people ain't pitting them and taking them out for a week or two in January and putting them back in the water for a week and saying they're all ready to sell, you know? That's not right either. That's going to be done if they can't leave them out there. And it already goes on anyway. But
Well,
They
I'm
should stay out
the
there,
wrong
the
one to
shellfish. They
ask.
shouldn't come out of a pit and go into the market anytime in the
Yeah.
winter, you know?
Yeah. Okay. Who else did I want to hear from? You guys who overwinters? How many people, not overwinters, who harvests in the winter? Raise your hand. Okay. Do you think a lot of people do? I mean, and percentage-wise of shell fishermen, we talking 20, 50? Okay, all right.
Bob Wallace said not too many.
Bob Wallace said 400 at the last meeting was what he,
400 people
400 racks,
is what he has.
what he leaves to sustain
Okay.
his New York market.
Okay. Okay, hold on. I'm hearing from the shellfisher people first, and I know you're not a shellfisher person. Okay, so we've got Shellfish Advisory Board. How about someone who is not for, how about someone who's for totally clearing out, like Kathleen Bacon, getting rid of everything? Anybody want to speak up for that? Clearing the whole thing out? And I also am going to hear, I'm going to hear from the Harbor Master and the Marine Advisory Board. Okay.
Hi, Michael Flanagan, Harbor Master. I just want to reiterate my opinion. I think that all gear should come off during the winter. It would provide a good time to maintain their equipment and make sure that nothing dangerous goes back out in the spring.
So Michael, step there for a second, please. So, with that said, what would the people who wanted to winter, harvest in the winter do?
They could do like they've done for the last hundreds of years and fish in the wild. When there's no ice, you can go out, fish in the wild, and fill your orders. There should be plenty of oysters out there.
Yes, no, yes, no. You know, this is all moot if we have a bad winter.
If they want us to go buy a dragger and start dragging.
Well, no, to fish in the wild, you don't use a dragger, do you?
Yes.
Some do, but not all the time. This is, okay. Anything else you want to add?
Just that if everything is off their grants, there's no enforcement to be had.
True. Say that, Chopper, what are you saying?
That's true. There's nothing there. There's nothing to do.
Yeah,
What are they gonna do then?
go to Florida.
I know it's a pain in the neck, but if you're going to participate in the
Right, gotta
conversation,
get up
please
there.
be at the microphone so that people at home can hear the conversation as well.
Okay, so anyone else that's representing, even though you're not a group, anyone else representing another aspect of this that needs to be heard? I'll hear from Alfred first, and then you can go, Zach.
You know, last year, we had a bad winter for the ice. We can't control that. The
Right.
stuff is everywhere. That's why we're here. It doesn't mean that last year is going to be the only year. Somehow this has got to get under control so this stuff is not everywhere. And it's not just one or two people. It's the fact that if you're going to put 3,000 racks, which may be the number that I'm hearing because that's what was there last year, and if you fill out the forms according to the Shellfish Advisory Board, that's still going to be allowed unless I'm confused. So if we don't have some type of tightening up in this somewhere, this is never going to get any better if we have ice, because good intentions don't stop Mother Nature.
Yeah, I mean, I think last year, didn't we have a really bad storm or ice like in October, end of October, that really messed, no, it wasn't October? Okay. All right, Helen, do you want to say something?
Yes, I was at the Shellfish Committee meeting last Tuesday, and I was at the previous discussion and the meeting before that, and I was on the Shellfish Committee when our former Shellfish Constable first brought up this concept, in response to the fact that a lot of stuff gets dragged off grants. There are a couple of issues here. One of them is that, I'm joking when I say this, but not really. I think you should all go to prison if you don't tag your equipment perfectly. Okay? And you know,
We're not going to vote on that tonight.
no, we're not. It's not on the agenda. But if there's not compliance with that, and there's been a lot of meeting and agreement about it. There've been good shellfish, community meetings about that. And everybody says, oh yeah, we got to tag better. That aside, there's another issue besides maintaining a winter market, and you don't want to miss, if you're in the business, you don't want to miss one delivery, one commitment throughout the year in terms of your business model. And that is that, this is very clear to me, and it was clear to me in 2013 or 14, I believe, when this regulation first went on the books, the whole idea of having a contract. Different parts of the harbor have different kinds of bottom, and that even varies from year to year. And people's range of cultivation, how much they want to do that year, how much whatever's going on their grant varies from year to year. And I wouldn't want, after having listened to this in 4 or 5 cycles now, in the Shellfish Committee, I wouldn't want to tell a person who's farming what they should do in the winter. And I feel that the Shellfish Constable's language and the draft that we got from her tonight is a kind of good meeting the Shellfish Committee halfway. In other words, you get to leave racks out there, but it's limited to 100. The language is very specific. And you have to tag anyway. It doesn't matter where this conversation goes about this regulation. You have to tag up the issue. Wait a minute, I'm talking. And I also feel that Bob Wallace's letter about this is very compelling to me, and he spoke in a very compelling way. I'm mainly talking with Justina and Janet here because we're going to be the ones voting tonight.
We're listening.
Yeah, no, I know. I like very much the modifications to the overwintering contract. One of the most interesting new thoughts that came from the constable lets people leave out more than 100 racks. But if they do that, they have to, they have to pay something pretty heavy. They have to pay $5 a rack over 100. And I have a question through you, Madam Chair, to any one of you out there. As an individual license holder, right, on a grant, would 100 racks give you, or some lesser number, enough to maintain a winter market for yourself? Actually, I'd like to address this through you, Janet, to Bob Wallace.
I don't see him here anymore.
Yes, he's back there.
Okay. Go ahead. So Chopper had his hand up too, but Bob was waiting in the back.
Question again?
The question is, if you, that is to say, as one you're a corporation, right?
No.
You're just an individual, okay.
EBA.
Yeah. So if you had an allowance of 100 racks to leave out through the winter in a certain way, right, would that be enough for you to maintain your winter market in a good, in a normal year?
That would be a minimal. I think the number that you come up with should not include anything that is flush with the ground. I think that is a 0. I've had stuff out there for 10 years. I have no feet on them. I jump up and down, boom, they're flush with the ground. I've never lost one in 10 years. In fact, I got to dig them out after the northwesterlies, bury them even further, deeper. So everyone should be responsible for their gear. Everyone has seen over the years what can and cannot happen to their gear. As someone said, it's hard to legislate morality. You're trying to legislate something that is environmentally friendly, at the same time not trying to put a kibosh on the industry to maintain its caliber in the marketplace.
It's hard to ascribe a number. As I said, I think anything that is flush with the ground, I have a lot of empty racks out there in the winter that are flush with the ground. I don't think that should be part of any number that you put on things left out there. If it's up 2 inches, okay. 4 inches, okay, fine. So 100, I could maintain. I did not miss a shipment last year having 100 racks out there. I minimally shipped to my customers in New York over the winter with 100 racks, but I'm just a small player on a big stage.
Thanks. Mr. Young?
Yeah, Chopper again. One point we seem to be missing here is you're just talking about a number of racks left out. What about the investment that all of us shell fishermen have, not only with the oysters, but the clams, the
Yeah.
tens and tens of thousands of dollars worth of seed that we've all purchased? You know, I got probably 30+ thousand a year in seed. So they're 2.5 to 3.5 inches long. So how do you suppose we ought to winter those over without any gear out there? You're missing that big picture. Yeah, we can make a living on, say, 100 or 300 or 500 racks, but, you know, you're trying to change the rule after we've built up to these numbers. This is the point we need to be talking about, not how many racks we leave out there. What about the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of oysters that's out there? What are we going to do with those? Put them in a pit? Big oysters don't live well in a pit. You're going to lose 3/4 of them anyway, sometimes all of them. Younger oysters you can put in the pit, smaller ones you do pretty well with that. But what are we supposed to do? All the people that's got 4, 5, 6, 700,000 oysters that's over 3 inches, what are they supposed to do with those? You can't sell them.
So,
You can't sell them this time of year.
to keep this moving, what, no, I want you up there. I want you up there. What is the compromise? So I want to say that I know the harbor master and Mr. Aberdale from the Marine Advisory Committee are here, and they don't want anything
Of
because.
course they don't.
So, now, be nice, play nice.
It's true, they don't. It's a
Okay,
mess.
no,
Sometimes
okay.
last year was a horrific mess. I give you
Yeah,
that. I know
okay.
that. It's better if that doesn't happen. Believe you and me,
Okay.
nobody wanted that to happen, and we'll do anything it takes to make it not happen again. But the fact of the matter is, it happened. It was a mess. It's all cleaned up. Let's move on. You're going to
So-
limit us to a number of racks. We have, some of these people have 1,000, 1,100 racks. That's what they've been doing every year. They built it up to that level. They've got 1 million oysters sitting there, and now you tell them, take them all home with you. You're all done. You only have a 5-6 month season, and you're all done.
Yep.
So let those all die, and their investment's down the tubes.
Nobody's saying that. So
Well,
you,
that's
so-
basically, if you're living it to 100 racks, you're saying that.
Okay, all right. This is what I'm finding out.
the
This
point that ought to be
this
talked
is
about,
a
not the amount of
what I
racks.
call so you can stay up there a bit too. Okay. So I'm gathering information. All right, for me because I'm like the last person you want to vote. But
You're
so
talking about all the gear, you know.
Okay. I also want you to, I want to ask you and everybody here, you should know by now how much the Select Board supports all your
Thank you.
decisions.
No,
Like,
thank
we're for you, okay?
for that.
But we're also for a clean harbor. In 1 year possibly, we're going to be getting dredged, so this is going to be a moot point, maybe. So,
It'll still happen if, you know,
yeah.
nature can happen. Storms can, it could happen in the middle of summer. All those racks could
Right.
get up with a twister, and they could all be
Yeah.
middle of
Yeah.
the channel in the middle of July. That could happen too. So it's not just an ice event.
Yeah,
You know,
agreed.
things happen.
Oh, wait, and does it matter what area, it has to matter what area you're in, right? You're in the middle of the, in middle of the channel, in the middle of the harbor, or you're out on Egg Island, or you're out somewhere.
There's, deeper water is a little better for leaving racks out traditionally. Where I am, I've never really lost money at all until last year. That was a really weird event that happened. 2 really cold days. We had those big chunks. We had a huge
Yeah.
southwest wind come and brought miles of 6-foot-high icebergs into the harbor. Everything wasn't pushed down yet from the ice that makes up in the harbor because it wasn't really cold enough long enough. had it been cold for a week before that happened, none of that would have happened. Everything would have been flushed to the bottom.
Okay, okay. So, yep, Mr. Abadale can speak with the Marine Advisory Committee.
The Marine Advisory Committee conducted a hearing last week on the updated proposal submitted by the warden. One issue that we would like the board to address that was mentioned quite a bit, including by the warden, was the lack of uniformity in tagging the gear. We've heard testimony about the difficulty in the placement of moorings in the spring with gear in the way that cannot be identified. We noted that one cannot put a mooring in the harbor without having a town and harbor master approved tag on it. One cannot put lobster traps in without having a state approved uniform tag. So we would like the board at some point to address the issue of establishing uniformity in the tags that are used. Thank you.
Thank you. Nancy, do you have an answer for that?
I guess the way that I look at it is different types of businesses use different systems, and I don't have a problem with it. I recognize that I think some tags stay on better than others, but I think everybody kind of knows that. I would take it to Shellfish Advisory and ask them what they thought of trying to mandate a uniform tag. It's something that's worthy of discussion. I don't want to weigh in on it right now because I haven't really.
That's fine. Helen?
Yeah, the state requires us to tag in certain ways. Isn't that true?
No.
Well,
The state requires 4 buoys.
for
That's it.
what?
4 buoys to mark your grants.
No, on people's equipment.
No, there's no
Well,
state
when
right.
it goes to market, when it's harvested, oh, yes.
Tagging, yes, that's for sale, yes, but not of gear on aquaculture grants.
No, but we have regulations.
Yes, we do.
And like I said, they should be enforced across the board. In other words, every piece of equipment should have some way, and there was minute discussion of this at the large shellfish community. I think it was hosted by the Shellfish Advisory Committee year before last. There was minute discussion of how you could get your tags to stay on your equipment. I was there. It was excellent. It doesn't matter, though. If you've got equipment under our regulations, you've got to be tagged. It's got to be identified as yours. And I know it's a pain. I once helped somebody do some of it, and I thought, oh my God, they do this for hundreds and thousands. Oh. But it doesn't matter. That's what you got to do. So I agree with the Marine Advisory Committee, but it's already supposed to be happening. That's not really the issue here. The issue is, how do we make it less apt to be a complete mess in strange weather situations like we had last winter? How can this be addressed to a degree? It will never be perfect. And I'm not sure that the black and white answer is the good one. The black and white answer is take everything off or just leave it up to everybody. And I think the Shellfish Constable's proposal, the language we've gotten, which has now been thought about quite a bit, should be tried for a couple of years. Mm-hmm. I think it's reasonable, and I think that there are going to be people, whatever we decide to vote on tonight, that are just going to take all their stuff off this winter because they don't want to deal with it. And they're going to make their own decisions about it. And if they want to leave some stuff on there, they can do it. In other words, it's not a black and white solution. It's a good compromise, I think.
So one thing that I will say is that I was sick and I could not attend Shellfish Advisory.
Okay. The second one.
And I really wanted to encourage people to come today and share thoughts. So, I did my best with Johnny and Chris and Drew to kind of think of some compromises here, but if people have something like, I'm also willing to be flexible to try something out. I mean, I'm not trying to be, I'm not trying to mandate something that, I'm trying to find a common ground.
Right.
So even with this, because I was not able to be at Shellfish Advisory, if people have an idea or two, modifications to this that you think would help in one way or another, or get you closer to where you want to be, you know, I'm happy to listen. I just don't, you know, I know that there's two strong forces here of people that believe everything should come off and people that believe we should just do what we've always done. So, you know, this was my try, but I am flexible. I'm willing to listen to ideas that get us closer to a compromise that everybody can live with.
Justina?
Madam Chair, through you to the Shellfish Constable. Nancy, as I understand it, and I think Helen brought attention to it, you have an innovative suggestion of grant owners who want to leave over 100 racks have to put $5 into a fund that would do a ghost, I forget how you termed it, but a survey of where the gear is.
It would help it with gear cleanup.
Right, because that's a $3,000 cost you got from Coastal Studies that would locate rogue gear. And if it's, we'd get to that $3,000 number quickly with the $5 cost of a rack. So I thought that was really innovative. And if that were done, there's not such a gap between your recommendations and the Shellfish Advisory as I see it. And then it's innovative new policing methods. It doesn't go as far as the harbor master wants, but we're trying some new things. So I think that's a good middle ground.
The main difference then would be flush to the bottom as
Right.
opposed to 4 to 6 inches. Chris Merle.
All right.
I would just like to ask a question, just for my own education here. Sheila Lyons, I'm not sure how long has this practice gone on of leaving the equipment out? And I only say this because of my own experience with one shellfishing family, and that person I'll leave nameless, but I think they're retired now anyway. But I remember our kids played together, so we were over there, and it was an arduous process for this person, but they were taking all their equipment in for the winter, and they did have a tarp or some sort of tent, and
Right.
you know, it was a really big job, and I understand it was a lot of work, as is shellfishing is. But when did this practice start? So that had to be 15 years ago. So is this something that's kind of grown over the last 15 years, or was that just one
Yeah,
person's
right.
preference back then? Or I'm just wondering, when did this become standard practice
25
as
years
opposed to
27 years
the
ago.
odd person leaving their stuff out and taking the chances of storm and weather?
So-
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Merle?
Beyond how many racks you're allowed to keep out and stuff, what are the repercussions of damage to other people's investments? I mean, are you going to address that at all in the document? I'm sorry, I haven't read the document, Nancy. But I mean, is there anything that addresses when someone's stuff goes through? I mean, Chopper used the sum of $30,000. There's people planting 1.2 million clams, that's $60,000 investment, including rebar, including nets and all that stuff. And when I was growing clams prior to the QPX, when we had out on the island, I eventually scaled back, but I had all my nets, which were 14 nets, run through from different racks and also moorings before, took pictures of the stuff, didn't want to go around suing anyone or making it bad for the industry, but I'm just saying, I went to the people who that stuff belonged to, and I was told to pound sand. So I'm just wondering, like, how are people going to be responsible for their equipment and the damage that it does?
So I think that is really the first issue that has to be addressed. We're not going to address it.
Madam Chair.
It is number
Enforce it.
11. It's number 11 on this, but it's always been in the contract, and I believe in the regs, that whoever's gear it is solely liable for damage to other people's equipment. And before, there was a problem of tags, and now, through our grant inspections, most...
But even civil action, you do that. I know, that's what I'm saying, is that what you want, everyone running around suing each other, or you want people to be responsible for their stuff?
Oh, I'd like people to be responsible for their stuff.
Madam Chair, we have 2 questions. Can I answer them?
Yes.
Yeah. The first question from Ms. Lyons, and I would like to, through you, ask Alfred Picard to weigh in on that. In other words, Alfred, my impression, let me ask you a question directly. Okay. My memory is, because I've had my nose in it since 2003, but I don't fish,
To the point.
is the whole question of whether you take your stuff off, whether you pitch your oysters, how much you leave on, how much equipment you leave on, what you do with it in terms of snugging it down or leaving it up, has been going on since before the 20 years I've been paying attention. And hasn't this always been a practice that's been from year to year, and it's personalized by where you are in the harbor? In other words, this is nothing new. The question about what to do with your stuff on your grant in the winter is nothing new. The question about how much product you leave on your grant overwintering it or any time is nothing new. So perhaps you could give a little more of a historical perspective, because I haven't been around that long.
All I can tell you, Helen, is that 10 years ago, all the draggers didn't bring the stuff home. Now that this
I can't hear you. I'm
Okay,
sorry.
gotta go, yep.
Ellen, all I can tell you is 10 years ago, the draggers didn't bring the stuff home 3 times a week. The draggers are bringing the stuff home 3 times a week. It's not old gear, because the stuff's only been galvanized for the last 10, 12 years maybe. And I could be wrong on that. So 15? Okay, so we only have 15 years worth of trash that's coming home now. The stuff before that didn't come home because they didn't hang up in it because it wasn't there. So now the stuff comes home in the drags, hung up in the boats, down on the beaches, and it's all galvanized racks. So if we've only been galvanized, and I'm going to have to rely on Chopper's wisdom for 15 years. So we only
Saying
have
25, 27 years.
no galvanized ones.
Oh, galvanized.
We haven't had galvanized ones for 27 years. How long would you say we had them? So for 15 years, we've had a new system of coating our racks. So I use that as a time date. Those are what come home. So for the last 15 years, this has mushroomed into a mess. 5, 6 years ago, it wasn't bad. 2 years ago, it got worse, and then after the ice this year, it's horrendous. The people sitting in this room who have draggers pick them up on a regular basis. To say that we don't have a problem in the inner harbor is one thing, but when we're all the way down to Jeremy's, into Eastham, the Target ship, I don't know why you were fishing there, but I won't ask that question. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is, if we're going to do $5 for a rack, which I understand in this thing, and I can still put all my racks out there, okay? For $5, I've offered Nancy $100 for a net so she can clean them up when they get loose. If I plant 60 nets, I offered her $6,000. All right? $5 is not a deterrent. $5 is only going to pay to tell us where our trash is. We should not have trash to find out where it is. So if that's your question, Helen, it's time that the stuff stops getting loose. 100 racks, whatever number she's asked for, I think is high. But to say for $5 I can put another $300, $400 at a piece, $5 is nothing. It's not a deterrent. We should look for funding for whatever she wants to do, Helen. But it's a circus out there.
So I want to kind of move on, because this is no, that's good. So for compromise, right, so Mr. Aberdale and did Mike Flanagan leave?
No.
I'll get to Annie in a second. Okay, there you are. Do you feel the solution would be if everybody was responsible for cleaning up, for pushing it down, that we could overwinter, or I keep saying overwinter, that you could have that, or do you just want everything off in the winter? If everybody was really responsible, really good, took care of not only your own grant, but possibly others, if you see some other wrecks floating, if everybody kept the harbor clean, would that solve the problem of the marina? Where's Mike?
Of course, if everybody took care of their gear, it would solve the problem, but I just don't see that happening.
So can we all make a promise tonight? You know, why can't you take care of your stuff, you know? That's the issue. Yes, Joe. Okay, Andy, you can go next, yeah.
The Shellfish Warden gave testimony, second to the last meeting, about the issue of tagging. And we've heard from others who have attended the hearing their frustration when they voluntarily clean up in the spring. The gear cannot be identified. The Shellfish Warden stated that the quality of the tags that is used varies greatly. Quality, the ability to stay on, is missing. That's why there has to be, if you're going to identify problems and focus on the gear that is causing the problem, I think you've got to start by being able to identify it. And that piece right now is missing.
Okay, so we're going, Mr. Koch. Don't stab yourself there.
Yeah, I really didn't want to get involved tonight, but I feel I have to because I've gone through this and I see what Nancy's going through, and it's a tough thing. I put in regulations. I wanted everyone to tag their gear, and going into the winter, identify as many racks you have. And in the spring, when you want to put gear out, I suggested you have to come by the shellfish department, see everything tagged, and we'll approve how much more. And a lot of people in this town didn't want to do that because they were just like, no, that's too, it's too strict and stuff. And there's a lot of times, I mean, in my career, in 13 years of being a shellfish constable, I had racks. I mean, it looked like a 40-foot dragger washed ashore. That's how many racks were balled up. And a lot of people that left the racks out, if there was a problem in the harbor, they go out and cut them off or whatever, and you couldn't identify. Or they're just little zippy ties that hold them on. And when they ball up like that, and I know who racks they were because they had them built by different people, and I could see the difference. I couldn't prove it. But it's very difficult for the shellfish warden, and I feel bad for her because she's going through the same thing as me. And as the winter gets closer now and the days are getting shorter, the tides aren't as big. The big tides are early in the morning before it's even light out and late at night when it's dark out. And there's a lot of grants in town where at that time you can't see them because they're underwater. And to try and find out how many racks are, it's almost impossible. But everybody needs to be, I mean, to give you an example, I have a dragger now. That's what I do. I drag the harbor. And my first day out was in April. I got 2 racks caught in my dredge. And if you don't believe me, I have it on video. I put it on Facebook. I was really pissed off. And, and I've had plastic bags, plastic gear caught in my dredge while I'm trying to drag, and I pull up, there's no clams in my dredge because they can't get through the scoop, But all I wanted to say is we tried a lot, and a lot of people they're just not responsible. And I just feel sorry for Nancy because I'm just glad I'm not in her position anymore.
Okay, thank you. So to end this, I would like to see I would like to see a better compromise. I would like to see people, because not that many people sell oysters in the winter. Yeah, 40, 30, what did we say?
Well, 44 people left racks out, but that's not the only way people leave gear out. So a lot of people sell throughout the winter. Because, like Chopper was saying, if you've got big oysters, you can't pit them, so you leave them out and hope to sell them during the winter.
So obviously, the shellfish industry has really grown in the last 10, 20, 25 years, right? And so with growth, it creates more problems, more coordination. If you don't want a lot of regulations, harsher regulations, limitations, you've got to be more responsible for your own gear, right? Yes, no, yeah, yeah. So I don't know how I want to go on this. I don't really want to limit somebody who needs to make a living in the winter because it's the hardest time. But I know 100 to some people seems like too little, but 100 to other people seem like too much. I think we really have to honor what the Marine Advisory Committee wants and the harbor master, what he wants. So is it time to go back and find any more of a compromise, or do you want us to vote on this tonight?
I don't really think we have a choice. I mean, anybody who's this is going to be a big change for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And as we were just talking about, as Andy was just talking about the tides, like, I will probably want to be able to use some discretion and work with people, because this will be a huge change in 1 year. And I'm not, just like we said with
all
the
right.
tags, when we had the big tagging meeting, there were some people that said it's just going to be impossible for me to do it immediately. So I was able to work and track people who were working through and tagging their gear so that they were successful over time. They didn't meet maybe the deadline that we had set out. So I would want to use discretion, because this is going to be a big change, to work with people to get everybody to this point. And, I think it'll be pretty clear who is going to need some assistance getting to this. Most people don't leave out a lot of racks. Most people don't. So there will be a few people that we'll have to work with and work into this scenario.
And what about accommodating people who do harvest their oysters in the winter or leave them out? If
I
they
mean, I
have a
think
lot of
this
seed
provides
oysters,
ample,
the 100 racks.
I mean, this was my math, and you guys can tell me what you think. 6 bags to a rack. If you had them at growing density, that would be 250, let's just say, oysters to a bag. But in the winter, when they are, kind of hibernating or dormant, and therefore not growing, you could put more in a bag. But even if you did, 6 bags, 100 racks, 250 oysters each, I think I came up with like 120,000 oysters, which would be 10,000 oysters a week in sales for 3 months. That's how I came up with 100 racks. I thought it would allow people to stay in business. And my math might be wrong, it might not fit for every business, but I just had to come up with something to try and find a compromise.
So again, we've been talking about this for about an hour, and you guys all have to stay for Mr. Conrad's report on the new high school, if you're
No,
going to be
and we've
here.
got a second regulation, too.
So, what?
We also have a second regulation after this.
Well, I'm including all the regulations.
No.
Okay.
The dragging and dredging is.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, all right, okay, that's right. So, quick word, finish it up, and we'll move on. Chopper and Zach and Bob, but we got to move on.
Aside from the math of how many racks to leave out there and how much product that leaves you, one thing that hasn't been mentioned, well, Chopper alluded to what are you going to do with all the oysters. For certain farms, ours included, getting that gear and oysters off, even if you wanted to. I mean, when do people start pitting? In December?
When the water temperature goes below 50.
So for certain farms, based on their location, if you're out on Egg Island like we are, you can't just pull I think I wrote in this letter that we sent to you that you can't just pull your truck up and make multiple trips. There's a limited number of racks you can get off in a tide.
Right.
So even if we were to say start today on the good tides, which you can't pit oysters today.
Yeah, it's
So
true.
it's not just the amount of racks that you can leave out, it's how you're going to get to that point. What are you going to do with all the oysters that we built up over many years of investment? where,
Not
where they
easy.
go. You throw them on the ground is one option,
Yeah,
but
okay.
that, yeah.
Janet, I've got a question pertaining to that. Let me ask it, please.
All right.
Yeah, I have a question pertaining to that. Yeah, why not? Through you to Zach. So, how many racks do you have out there right now, the three of you?
About 1,000.
1,000, okay. And one of the things that is clear to me, and, you know, should be clear in the language of Nancy's proposed regulation, is 3 separate people. You're not all one business. You're 3 separate licensees, or are you all one business?
One business.
Oh, you're one business, so that would give you 100 racks. What would be a reasonable, but limited, less than summer, let's say, number of racks, in your opinion?
Well, as I was just saying, that's not really the issue. I mean, we
I
can
understand.
work out a number based on sales and, come up with a number like that, but it's more a logistical problem.
I understood that, but I asked you for a number. I did understand everything you said, and I read the letter, and I got it. But if you had to throw in a compromise number that wasn't 100, what would it be?
I don't know. I mean, I have to look at it and look at,
Okay,
make some
thank you.
projections.
Okay, this gentleman can go.
My name is Dave Ziamba. I'm a retired shell fisherman and a dragger. What the board member, Christina, is forgetting is that Wellfleet's got its name from a wild oyster, oysters that are caught in the wintertime and sold in the wintertime. People that go out in the flats and handpick. These oysters were prime, and we have a market, still a viable winter market, and it's well supplied with Wellfleet oysters. When I was dragging in the middle of January, I was landing 10,000 oysters a week. This is when I make my money. In the summertime, the grant people have the market, and they sell their oysters, and they do quite well. The simple solution is to ground crop your legal oysters and pit your smaller oysters. Very simple solution. We're all going to be back here, not next year maybe, but we'll be back here because this ice doesn't stop. This is something that I've seen in my lifetime, and I've seen ice that you couldn't even walk over. Indian Neck was loaded with ice for a few years. I mean, we don't have it now. It's not saying that we're not going to get it, because we will get it, and then we're going to really have a mess. You ought to consider ground cropping your legal oysters, pit your smaller oysters, and you still have a market. You can sell them.
Okay.
Simple. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, it
Sure.
should be simple. I'm going to see if Mr. Wallace has one last comment, and then we got to move on. And you can comment too if you want to add something.
Having 37 years of experience, I bought my racks without feet for the reason of making them flush with the ground. And in 10 years, those that don't have feet that are flush, I've had 2 tweaked that I managed to retrieve. So I think perhaps you should consider that things that are flush shouldn't be even part of an equation of what's left out there. They're empty. I bought them specifically so I didn't have to bring them back and forth, because that is labor you don't get paid for. So I'm trying to steal a march on Sousa. Work with me.
So Nancy, in this regulation, I'm trying to quickly go over it. The ones
So
that are,
my regulation proposes that if you're leaving equipment out there, it should have product on it. It should have oysters on it, not just
Okay.
empty equipment. That was which Bob doesn't agree with.
all right. What were you going to say, Justina?
Oh, it's okay. Just to the gentleman at the mic, first of all, that was great information about there are more than grants supplying the winter market. But bottom cropping is, as I'm sure most people know in the room, only works in some grants. Some don't have the conditions to, you could bottom crop it and then you go out and next year and your great oysters would be elsewhere.
No, they wouldn't. They'd be right where you put them. If the ice is going to take your oysters, they're going to take those racks from wherever you put them. Those oysters are right on the ground. I mean, you go out there when you can and you harvest. I mean, it's all part of it. I agree with you. Some people have a soft bottom, like Bob, and he can push his down. His aren't a problem. But, you know, you got your Egg Island grants. It's all hard bottom, or sugar sand, or whatever. I mean, it's not just Blackfish Creek we're talking about. We're talking about the whole harbor. My son fishes my boat now. Every day, and even still, he has to deal with these wrecks. And it's not just a question of trash in the harbor. He risks his life doing it. These things go 10 feet in the air. And what happens when the hook lets go? You know, you got to run for it. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
And I think the town is going to be liable for it. You ought to realize it, that it's a problem. And it's a problem that could take somebody's life, not just trash in the harbor. Thank you.
We gotta move on. So I don't think this is ending anything, and there's no good conclusion. Personally, I feel I have to support our shellfish constable. But I do think that this should be an ongoing discussion. I think that it is really important for everyone who shellfishes to be responsible for their gear. And I also want to see if there can be some kind of compromise or accommodation for people who do want to, whether they need to or want to is moot, who want to have more oysters out there for the winter sale. And I said before, I do not know a lot about this, and I know that there's probably every individual here has a different request, a different problem, because we have different areas, different bottom. So,
Racks and bags are not the only way to have oysters in the wintertime. They've been selling oysters in the wintertime for hundreds of years.
because you just have them on the ground, on the bottom.
You can have them in portable cages, you can have them on the
Okay,
ground.
all right.
Like Mr. Zephyr said, people cover them up with bird nets to keep them so they don't blow off the grant. I mean, there's
Okay.
been plenty of different people who've done plenty of different things over the years that didn't have anything to do with racks or bags.
Okay,
And that's kind of why in this new overwintering agreement, we're getting at all the different things that people use so that we can kind of track
Right.
and people are accountable for all of it.
so let's observe how this goes, if the three of us are going to vote for it. But I do think we should be looking at this, that it's not hard for the, like we can accommodate and modify it, ratify it, amend it as it goes along. And we can, of course, yes, Mr. Picard, I swear, I always like to give you guys a chance, but yeah, so Alfred's going to be the last.
If you're going to vote this, I
You're
hope
going to say that again?
if you're looking at voting what the shellfish warden proposed, the only part of this that, if you leave in it, changes nothing, is the fact that you can have the racks after 100 for the $5. So if you leave it, if you take her version, nothing, in my opinion, has changed. So this whole thing was for zero. If Nancy takes, or through an amendment through you, or one of your members, takes the extra racks after 100 out, at least we've got to that level. But by not taking that out, I believe we've had no change. So I hope you realize that, unless I'm
I don't.
confused.
Janet, may I address that?
Yes.
There is something new in the new language proposed, which is, what we have now is, the racks, if you leave them on, have to be down to 8 inches. And hold on, and in this new language, it says, if you leave it on, all racks must be pushed down to be flush with the bottom by January 15th or before the ice. Janet, there is one more thing that hasn't been brought up that is germane to this, and it has to do with 100 racks, and it came up at the Shellfish Committee meeting, and I'm sorry I didn't say it before. One of the issues that came up, and Chip Benton brought it up twice, and he brought it up at the other one. It's really hard if you have a reg, if it's unenforceable. And to have some limit on the number of racks, at least for this year, that are left out there, and the rest of the language in here, the Shellfish Constable and the Shellfish Committee discussed how enforceable it was. And these numbers come in part from that. which is why I'm looking at Nancy and.
I would not say that any calculations were based on manpower. They were based on what people would be able to sell. This is a tall order. I'm not going to say it's not. It's hard for me to get through regular grant inspections right now. So this is adding 2 more, once when people turn in their overwintering agreements,
Yes.
and once after. It's going to be a lot. It's going to be a lot. But we will get out there and do it. And, you know, we might not be on boat patrol, and we might not be on intertidal patrol. You can't do it all.
My memory is.
Speaking to the mic, you just went blank.
Is the mic on?
Did you press your button?
Ah,
There we go.
on?
Yeah.
Sorry. The 3,000 racks that, without this regulation, would get left on was something that was really going to be hard to do. That's what I remember you're saying, and that's what came up when you were asked that very good question by a member of the Shellfish Committee. And this would modify that somewhat.
And add in 2 more inspections a year.
Yes,
Of
it would.
44, if people do it, 44 different grants. But actually now, if you're leaving holding cages, then we're going to come and look at those too. So it's a tall order. I'm not going to say it's
Well,
not.
the language here would not have the holding cages.
Yeah, it does.
Oh, wait a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right. I'm looking at 3
I
different
think it's
regs here.
important to know
Yeah.
how it's being done. That will help us in the future make better decisions.
Okay, so we have to move on. I would actually like to see everybody go to a larger meeting and really work out all the differences, but that's not really my choice. This is very complex, and there's a lot of different people with a lot of different needs and different desires. No, I'm not taking any more. Nope. Nope.
I'm just going to say, it's
No,
going to
you're
be
not gonna
helpful
say
to have
anything.
the regulations and the letters in the hands of people
Okay.
when they come to the
They've
meeting.
read them all. You came in a little late. Okay.
Point of order.
But on the website,
You
they
came
were
in
put in
late,
the
too.
packet last
Okay.
Friday. If you check the website and look at the packet and do your due diligence, you will notice they're in there.
Well, that's your
Okay,
problem.
okay.
I'd be glad
Point of
to
order.
review at town
Yes,
hall.
okay. We got to move on.
Can
So-
we call the question?
Yes, that's what I want to do. So I just want to say, however this vote goes, that this should be continuous, and we need feedback, and we need to work so that different types of fishing industry gets what they need, but also the harbor and the harbor master, the marina and the harbor master get what they need, and boaters. This is a big, complex situation. So, okay. Yeah, I know.
Yes, there is.
So is everybody going to clean up their stuff? Why not? Why not? Why not? No, did you may have, did everybody clean? I don't know, then what's the problem? Okay, what?
Point of order.
A new can of worms.
Can we call the question?
Yes, nope, I just changed it. So that is, to me, one of the main problems is that there's trash, there's old equipment that is messing up the harbor, messing up our beaches.
The draggers do have a legitimate problem.
Okay, right, okay, there's a legitimate problem. Nope. Sorry, but the marina and people with moorings and the harbor master.
The two businesses
Okay.
had a problem.
Okay,
their moorings.
okay, they still had a problem,
Point of order.
Yeah,
This is
there
really
is. Okay.
hard for everybody to feel safe and
Yeah.
listened to.
So the idea,
So-
though, is be responsible for your equipment, okay? Is that hard?
No, but not
Okay.
everyone does that.
Okay, so everyone has to do that. Everyone has to do this, or it's going to get more strict, it's going to get different. So everyone has to be responsible for their own equipment. It isn't that hard.
Most of the problem people aren't even here, so it doesn't.
Yeah, right. So, I don't know. So just take care of your neighbor, Tell your neighbor to do it. Tell Nancy to tell your neighbor. Tell whomever. But that's the big problem. That's the whole problem is the equipment, right? Isn't that the whole problem? Yes, no? Oh, the ice is the problem. Well, we're warming, so.
Can you read what you're going to vote on?
No, because it just says, I move to approve the changes to section 7.19.5 of the Wellfleet Shellfish Regulations and Appendix D as recommended by the Shellfish Constable. So I would have no problem moving this to another time, another day, but I look at Nancy and she'll.
I've,
Eventually, this is gonna get taken out of our hands. This Commonwealth of Massachusetts is gonna take over.
no, it's not. No, it's not.
Madam Chair?
Okay, wait, point of order. I get it, you guys, I get it, but it is point of order. So, make a motion.
I am going to make a motion.
How, what?
Wait,
Okay, we could be here tonight, and then another meeting, and another meeting. Nancy's put forward a very good plan. She's a good constable. I'm not going to assume that her plan is going to fail before we've even given it a chance. So I'm going to make a motion. I approve to approve the changes.
Justina, hold 1 minute. Excuse me. Nancy and I spoke before this. There's a citation
There's
that
a
doesn't
couple
change
of little
the-
citations that I can add in. I don't
Yeah,
know
they're just
how.
citations to.
Do you want to make the
other
motion and
regs.
add the citation in?
No, it's okay. I'm just mentioning it. They don't.
Do I need to change the motion?
I'm just mentioning the amendments that don't change the content, but refer to other sections of the regulations that pertain to it. They don't change the content of it at all.
Okay,
And they're basically almost like typos.
right.
You know, it's that level of correction.
Okay.
It's just adding in a couple of citations to other areas of the regulations for,
Does it need to change the
So-
motion, Helen?
No, but it
so.
needed to
Okay.
be mentioned.
I see.
Yes.
So I want to clarify one other thing. Is enforcement an issue?
I would say, I would
Okay,
say
all right.
that I have been working with people. I have not written tickets. If people want tickets written, believe me, it's going to happen starting this year. It seems like that's the sentiment that I've gotten. It's a good point. We're just going to do our best. Most places you can inspect. You can't inspect the Deepwater Indian Neck grants, and people take all their stuff off of those. And Egg Island can be difficult to inspect, but I've done it at night before, and we'll do it at night again.
Okay, so point of order, I'm sorry, but we have to move on. But it seems like you guys all need to do a lot more discussion, a lot more figuring it out, helping Nancy enforce it, helping yourself be responsible, and then coming up with, find out what is the feasible number for winter shell fishing. I have no problem with coming back if you feel you need to increase the number. That to me is not a big deal. But again, there's a lot of problems. We got to keep the harbor clean. We got to keep the beaches clean. It's a danger to boats. It's a danger to swimmers. It's a danger to anybody on the beach. So you've got to be responsible for your rebar and all your cages and all your wrecks and everything else, okay? And maybe we'll have like a citizen's arrest or something if you don't do it right.
Are you
No,
gonna do
that
Appendix
doesn't
D
work.
too?
But anyhow.
Are you going to do Appendix D too?
So it shouldn't be that hard, really? Really, you guys, come on. This is a nice town. We're trying to make it a nice town. Be nice, be friendly, work together. Be cooperative. Everybody,
Are you gonna
even
move
those not listening. Go.
Appendix D
Okay, you
to-
do it.
You-
You
you
just
do
do
the
it,
motion,
Helen.
Oh, jeez. Okay, so everybody, hey, I move that we approve the proposed 7.19.5 regulation change, overwintering of equipment on grants, and Appendix D as recommended by the Shellfish Constable.
Second.
All in favor? Abstain? Bring it back? Okay.
It doesn't pass then.
Oh, all right, okay.
You were the quorum right now, so
All
if you
right,
don't want
that's
to come
right,
back to
that's
this.
right.
Yeah,
I thought
just
a
think about
quorum
that.
could still vote, but two or four, one abstaining. Oh, it's got to be, all right.
3.
All right, I'll vote for it.
Thank
Okay,
you.
but moving on, this needs to be worked on a lot. This is really important to our town. I don't want anyone here thinking, I don't think changes and support for everybody needs to happen. It's got to continue.
Yep.
Okay. All right, moving on to dredging and dragging regulations.
So what I will say about this is
Did you have some food?
Bay scallop season begins next Tuesday. Shellfish advisory, unfortunately, I wasn't able to be there because I was sick, and that meant that Shellfish advisory didn't make any decisions on it, and I get that, and we're going to come back and talk about boat regulations in general. But there is one facet which I felt was an impediment for us to be able to do our jobs. So I took that on here, and I understand what Chopper was saying earlier about, it is supposed to go through the process of Shellfish Advisory Board makes a recommendation, and they had agreed that they were going to discuss it on October 6th. And everything else will be discussed there. But this regulation here, it doesn't leave me with clear guidance on how to implement. I don't have clear guidance on how to implement this regulation without specifying gear type. So when you set out to target a certain species, you choose a gear type, whether it's a gill net that has an 8-inch mesh for targeting codfish and groundfish, or whether you're using a larger mesh to target skates and monkfish. Every time that you deploy a piece of gear, you are intending to target something. And so this says that if you're going to target bay scallops, you use a bay scallop dredge. And we researched every other community on Cape Cod and even over the bridge, and everybody specifies a bay scallop dredge. It has no teeth and a sweep chain. And I spoke with many old timers who said that Wellfleet has always used bay scallop dredges to target bay scallops. So I just wanted to get it in there so that then I can implement the 20% bycatch rule. If you've got a bay scallop dredge on and you land 10 bushels of bay scallops with a 20% rule, you can land 2 bushels of oysters and 2 bushels of quahogs, and we will not be implementing the bycatch on blood clams because it's not a regulated species by the state.
Yeah, but it is.
And therefore
if I may.
Yeah, I said it.
But it is in our regulations, and therefore, the Shellfish Department has to regulate the bycatch, because it's in our regulations, which were approved by the DMF.
I don't think if I went to DMF, I don't think DMF would support me on that, so I'm not.
Okay, let's check, because when it was put in there, they supported us doing it. Maybe things have changed. Okay? That's all I know, and I really do know that. Maybe they've changed. But don't forget, we don't have one regulation the DMF hasn't approved. That's the home rule principle. We can be stricter than they are, okay? So, respectfully...
And bay scallops are more regulated by the state. Like the bushel limit is the state limit. We adopt it, obviously, as the town. We're not being more restrictive, but bay scallop is more of a state supervised fishery. If we want to extend the season, we have to petition the state, which we did this year, and we got it extended, if you remember. But so this is kind of making sure that we're in line with the state, and also that we're able to do our job when it comes to the bycatch rule.
Madam Chair, I was only talking about the blood arcs and the ponderous arc regulation we have. I wasn't talking about the rest of it. Okay?
I know.
And I was addressing the fact that you said we didn't have anything, and we do. So this need for this kicks in on October 1st.
Which is Tuesday.
And normal protocol is, although there was some discussion at the Shellfish Committee meeting on Tuesday about this, it was talked about a bit, not everybody that has a boat was there. There were some people there, and they didn't give us a recommendation. So we have the situation where it's time sensitive, and it does say in our existing regulation, no vessel shall land more than, it says, on the first, it says, where does it say this? Oh, God, what an idiot I am. No vessel shall land more than 20% of the permitted catch of any species of shellfish as bycatch other than the species which the gear used is designated to harvest. And what you needed was for that to be a little more enforceable by defining the gear. Is that correct?
Yeah.
And this is like 50-50 for me. I always want to know what the Shellfish Committee recommends, and we should hear that. But it's time sensitive, and this doesn't really change that first sentence, which is already in there. It just makes it a little more clear. So
Just defines the gear.
Yeah.
yes.
So that people understand what the 20%.
Yeah.
If they have a base golf dredge on,
Yeah.
then they'll be held to 20% of other species.
So my feeling about this is I would vote to approve it. I would like to hear what the Shellfish Committee says about it formally with you present at its next meeting. But I would like you to be able to start enforcing it on October 1st.
Mr. Young?
Yeah, chopper again. So the bushel size you enforce is the same
We're
as the
not-
state for base scallops?
But we can only, we
You said
can't
we
go
have to adhere to the
to the
state's
state bushel limit, 10
limit.
bushels,
So we're
or
gonna have
20.
we're gonna have crates this year like every other base scallop town?
No, we're going to use our bushel baskets.
But you just said that we have to, all the state
We're going to respect 10
regulations.
bushels. 10 bushels is
Not
the state limit.
bushels.
We're going to use our Wellfleet baskets.
Wellfleet baskets.
Yep,
And also, none of the other drags in other towns have teeth on them for base scallops. you
that's
just stated.
correct.
Really?
That's correct.
Well, I have some of those hand drags that they use in Pleasant Bay. I have several of them, and I know they use them on the Vineyard, and I know they use them on Nantucket, and they have teeth on them. I'll bring one in to show you if you want.
Johnny went to the
Yeah, where he went.
the Mass Shellfish Officers Association meeting and queried everybody there.
Well, they
So
sell them
maybe
at
they've
Cape Fish.
changed.
You go up there tomorrow and look, they have dozens of them in the basement. They have teeth all over them. And they've been doing that for longer than I've been shellfishing.
Okay,
You
that's
state
different
that
from
at
the
a meeting. It's
research.
not- Don't take that to heart. There is teeth on base scallop drags in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts.
Okay, so when I did, when we researched the regulations, I did not see that, so,
You just said before, though, you went beyond the Cape and found there was none.
like Wareham. No, I
None, you
said we went we went to Wareham, just over the bridge.
Cape,
We looked at a couple of places. I can do another search for it.
You don't have to. I'm just telling you. You can go to Chatham Fisherman's Supply tomorrow and go buy a dozen of them with teeth on them.
Okay.
So
I think more
that's
importantly
not
for our
sensitive
harbor,
to
that, I can stand corrected, I'll go look again. But more importantly for our harbor, they have not been used traditionally. What has been used is
I've been
base
used-
scallop gear.
I've been using my drag since 1994 when I built it, and it's got teeth on it, and I've been using it for base scallop since 1994.
All I know is what I'm trying to enforce right now, so.
Okay.
That law changed.
No,
I understand.
I was informed by, that it's always been this way in Wellfleet, so.
Okay.
Ask every constable if I remember. Andy said if I did my, what's the guy?
Oh, I'm letting him do it.
2 years in a row, actually. Both times we looked into it, it was the same thing.
All right. Okay. Yes. Come to the mic, yep.
Dan Morton. I feel like there should be like much more discussion at the Shellfish Advisory Board meetings before you guys vote on this, because it's a pretty contentious topic.
Yeah.
And we didn't get to talk about it at all last week when all of us showed up. Nancy was sick, so, but we should talk about it before anybody votes on it.
I think you guys should all be going to the Shellfish Advisory Board committee meetings quite regularly. I mean, it really seems like everybody needs to discuss and everybody needs to be part of this. It should be. Yeah.
No.
Joe has his eyebrows furrowed, and then I'll talk to you, Andy, and then, again, we got to move on.
Just a quick comment. The issue of enforceability is an issue that the committee had a lot of discussion about, whether or not under this proposal it is enforceable. And I note that in the original proposal that Nancy made, she indicated that she would have to shift her resources to enforce this and take it away from other duties. I think that needs to be on the table for discussion, and some decisions have to be made to ensure the enforceability of what you're looking at.
Yep, always a problem. Okay, can we move on? Okay, you want to talk?
Comment on the base scallops?
Yep, could you speak a little more into the microphone?
Sure.
Thanks.
I have to agree with Nancy on this. I think she's totally right about the base scallop issue. The only thing I disagree about is the string-tied bushel bags that we've been using for the past, 50 years. Because of the yield we get in Wellfleet, we have coral on our base scallops. We can't get as many into a bag as they do in Eastham or Orleans or Brewster or Barnstable. We were allowed to take a string-tied bushel bag. It makes it easier for us to take them out at the pier, and it also catches up to the same amount of yield as these other towns get per bag.
It's still in the regs.
It's put in the regs. It wasn't in the regs in '87 that way. It was a string-tied bag.
10 bushels tied of scallops, including shells. That's what the regulations say right now.
Right now. That's because they were put that way. That isn't the way they were in '87. In '87, they were a string-tied red bag. That's how they defined it. You go back into your regs and you can see.
Okay, well, this is something you guys can work out. And that's not, is that part of this? I'm quickly
It's really
looking.
not, so I think
Okay.
it's something we can work out on the pier.
Yeah,
Janet?
okay. Yes, Helen?
Yeah, I'm 50-50 here. And respectfully to the Shellfish Constable, I really would like to hear what the Shellfish Committee would recommend on this. So would it be possible to have this hearing continued until our next meeting? In other words, there would be
I know what you
maybe
mean.
2 weeks.
So why don't you make a motion?
Yeah, wait, maybe 2 weeks for us to wait on this. And that'll mean there'll be some period of time where you're just operating out of the existing reg. And then I would also like to direct the Shellfish Committee to meet before our next meeting. This will mean a bit of difficulty for them.
I think it's slated for October 6th, is what I heard, is that right?
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Yeah,
Mike?
October 6th, October 9th at 6 o'clock.
Oh,
Okay, Mike, you have a question or comment?
Just a comment. This has obviously been ongoing for a long time. Whether the season starts without the regulations or not, I mean, we've gone through how many seasons with the regulations that are current? I mean, how many years have these regulations been current as written now?
Probably a long time.
A long time. So is it really crucial that we act immediately, or can we go to the Shellfish Advisory Board, allow them to comment with Nancy there, and have everything come back to the board? I don't see it as an emergency. We've had probably 30, 40 years, 35 years of fishing occurring with the current regulations. I don't see waiting a few more weeks makes much of a difference,
Okay.
whether a
So
season starts or not.
Would you like to move to postpone?
To continue the hearing.
Yeah, but I would, Madam Chair, through you, I just agree with Mike, and I don't think we should put the hardship on the Shellfish Advisory to change their regular meeting schedule. We should have them meet, and then it should come to the Board of Selectmen in an orderly fashion.
Yeah, that would be our meeting of
end of
October
October.
22nd.
Okay, well, I'll leave that up to you guys. Did you make a motion? You made a motion.
Well, we're going to move to take no action, right?
No.
We're going to
You do
move
it.
to,
Yeah, I move to continue the hearing on a new Section 8 commercial shellfishing, dragging, and dredging regulation to,
You don't have to make a date, just move to continue.
Don't we have to make it to a date
It's
certain?
ideal to have, because you're
Yeah.
having a public hearing, so
Yeah.
to continue to October 22nd.
Until October 22nd.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor? Good, okay.
Thank you.
Thank you for all your hard work, and I thank everybody here for your hard work. And there's still more hard work to go, right? All right, so, Mr. Conrad, good to see you again.
Good to see you, Tom.
Yeah, and Mr. Isley, right? Easley, okay.
Okay. Exciting stuff.
Yeah. So, I think you might enjoy this suggestion too, that I know this project has been ongoing and been presented, and the budget's being presented. And do you just want to highlight and summarize that? I think people would be, but I don't want to rush you either, so.
It's okay.
I think it's okay, right?
So, good evening, and thank you for giving us a few minutes to continue the dialogue on the building project at Nauset Regional High School. The last time we were talking...
Tom, can you pull that mic
Yeah.
right up close to
Yeah.
you? Thank you.
The last time we met during the budget process, I had updated you on the building committee had been put together. They were working forward on a number of projects. For our viewers, both watching and in our audience, we are obviously heavily involved with the MSBA, which is the Massachusetts School Building Authority. And the reason for that, of course, is that is the one mechanism to get funding to help in these projects. I will remind you that a couple of years ago, when we decided to apply to that process, on average, it was taking 5 years to get into the program.
Yeah.
And after their visit to Nauset, in the second year, they chose us as one of 14 schools in this cycle out of 80 schools that was considered for financing and so forth. Where are we now as we move forward? Our staff and with the leadership of our building principal, Dr. Alsassa, has been working on the educational vision for this program going out as far as 20 to 30 years. And that sets the tone for once we finish that work, it gave us the opportunity to begin, as we work with our architects and our OPMs, the opportunity to begin looking at the space that meets the needs of that educational plan. And in August, I traveled with Chris and Kathleen Tringali. We were selected at that point. We had gone through a panel of architects and engineers looking at the educational plan and its opportunity to meet the needs of the building relative to the education we offer our students. And they were very, very complimentary. They loved the plan. They're very excited for this plan going forward. And so at that point, we shifted gears. We went up a second time to Boston, to MSBA, and they have chosen us to go into what they know as the schematic part of the project. And we are in that right now. And that includes the mechanics of the building, what the classrooms will look like as we go forward, and so forth and so forth. So we're real excited to continue into this. We're starting some work tomorrow on the campus with this relative to our discussions on that part of it. And from there, we've provided behind us billboards, I believe they're in the library here in Wellfleet. And I do want to draw a couple of key points. There is no question that I think probably the number one question being asked of us is what about security on that campus? And it is an open campus. And things have changed dramatically the last 30 years. And you can see, when you look at this, quite honestly, at the beginning of the campus, as you come onto it, we'll be controlling all the parking relative to vehicles coming onto that campus, and we'll be using gates, hopefully handsome gates, to control the flow of people when they come onto the campus. And it gives us the opportunity to have complete control over who's coming in and who's going out. So that's a key piece. The other piece that we have really been looking at a very high level is recognizing that learning doesn't stop, hopefully, for anyone at any age, that we see this along the lines of a community center for learning. And we're anxious to be aggressive in terms of the opportunities that not only students would have at that age group, but all our citizens in the 4 towns to take advantage of coursework and programs that we could blend between all of our citizens going forward. And we're really, really excited to look at it from that perspective, because this is a huge amount of money that we're talking about. And maximizing the use of it and those who benefit from the facility is unlike almost anybody else in the state in terms of that community center concept for learning for everyone. So those are 2 key points. So Chris, maybe you want to add some points to this?
I think you covered it pretty well. I mean, one of the key things is that the school is 47 years old at this point, and it's a little tired. And in turn, there is a fair amount of maintenance items that have kind of been put off up to this point in time, boiler replacement, whatever. And getting into this program with the state was a way of getting the towns, getting the state to contribute with the towns to improve the school. Whereas prior to that, it would have been all on us to do the repair and maintenance items. So one of the benefits of being in this program is that roughly 41% of the cost of the remodel and replacement of buildings will be shared by the state, which is helpful and takes some of the bite out of it. In turn, education is a priority down here for the families, but in turn also because of where we are, it's important that our kids get an education so that when they're finished with school, they can choose, they have choices.
Right.
Go to college off Cape or come back and then come back, or they are just prepared
Go to the
to
tech.
enter the society as it is today. And
Yeah.
so quality school, as we have, and in order to continue it, it's important to keep it
So,
going.
so building on Chris's point, I'm glad to see a number of people here listening to this discussion. Thank you for coming. And I would encourage as many of you as possible to take advantage of actually getting a tour of the high school. And that can happen very simply. We tried to keep it as simple as we could. It happens on every Wednesday. And we're doing it from 4 to 6 p.m. And Dr. Al Sasser and myself and others will be leading a 1-hour tour. Why a 1-hour tour? Because that's what the Massachusetts School Building Authority did when they came onto the campus, and you'll take that exact walk that they took. We're not setting up anybody with different things to see. And you'll get a pretty good handle in terms of the needs of that campus going forward. And I would think that's something that all of our citizens want to know right out of the bat. Why are we doing this project? And we're doing it because this is a tired campus who has served us well for 41 years, and it needs a great deal of work.
Yep.
Sure, go ahead.
So I'm going to, okay.
Just
Mr.
very,
Turkanian.
very briefly, to be respectful of your time. It's important that people understand that we have been very careful to try and be good stewards of taxpayers' dollars. We realize that this is a very expensive project, and it's an important project. These buildings will be approaching 50 years old before a shovel goes in the ground. We have paid close attention to efficiencies in the building. We have chosen to retain as much of the existing structure as we can. And in fact, the MSBA has awarded us an additional 1% for our maintenance. a 3% for the fact that we've been able to retain as much of the existing buildings as possible, and 2% for energy efficiency in our proposals. So on the 37.95% reimbursement that we would get under the state formula, we will get an additional 6% based on these additional steps. And I just want to emphasize that that's just the beginning. We're very careful to look at what everything that goes into that building costs, and we're very careful to look at what it will cost to operate that building as well as what it will cost to build it. Thank you.
So I have two questions. One for the audience and the people watching this on video later. Everyone always wants to know, what's the projection of students that will be using this? And I'm sure, I know it's impossible to guess, but,
Sure.
5, 10 years down the road too.
So there are a few factors in that number. And if you've watched any of the other Cape communities go through the building process, very early in the process, the MSBA is working, they have 3 or 4 full-time people working on the demographics
Right.
of a school population of a community. And in this case, when we finished our conversations, we were able to meet with them in Boston very early in the project. And after all of their research, they felt that the number for this project would be 905 students. And so this...
Presently or projected?
So they are always looking at our demographics, our numbers, programs, and so forth. And so at 905 students in terms of the MSBA, that has some financial issues that go with it in terms of how much they'll pay relative to certain parts of the project that either we want to stay within their guidelines or we see the possibility of going a little bit bigger. An example would be, we're taking a long look at the auditorium because we see it as the possibility of being a cultural center, not only during the school day with all kinds of groups working with our kids, but also performances for our adults to enjoy music and art and all kinds of other things. And so, right from the beginning, the number that MSBA is focused on, and never to change, is 905 students for the project.
Thank you. And you mentioned the boiler before. What is, I hope you're putting in a new efficient system. Are you doing anything like a heat pump, mini splits, anything like that? Oh, and there are programs for installation of solar panels that are funded. Have you looked into any of that?
That will be part of the design process, but I can tell you, having gone through that process with the Cape Cod Regional Technical High School, I'm also on that building committee, we looked very carefully at basically total cost of operation, not just the cost of installing the heating system, but the cost of operating it and the efficiency associated with operating it. That's part of a more complete design. We're not there yet, but it is part of what we do.
Good. And you're looking into that, fuel efficiency?
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Any questions, Mike?
I just have a question about the idea of it being used as a community center. I'm enticed by that, and I'm wondering how open you kind of envision that to be. I mean, are you talking about continuing education classes, maybe potentially like college credit worthy classes?
I think I'm leading this discussion, and my vision is that as we move forward, I can go as far as if we have open seats during a school day, and looking at, Corey checks on people, and security is always a big issue, background checks on people. I would entertain the idea of adults, seniors, getting into a painting class if we had 2 extra seats and things like that. From there, we begin to look at, on a Saturday morning, if you were to drive to Nauset now, at 9 o'clock in the morning, you're going to see a locked-down campus, and if you don't know it and you get in the center, you're probably going to get lost trying to find your car to get out of there.
Mm-hmm.
We see it as an opportunity to have all kinds of coursework on Saturdays and weekends. And we see the opportunity, we're going to have a black box theater that can be utilized. All of our fitness and equipment from the gyms and so forth will be available. Because I think ultimately, without adding staff and with the possibility of having a slight decrease in our numbers over the next 20 years, we can keep our teachers, full-time teachers, but teaching in a different way. In other words, teaching some during what we would know as a day school and others as weekends or evenings and things like that.
And these would be potentially paid-for classes or seats in a class, or all open, free for the public?
Yeah, so I'm of the opinion, but I don't get the final say. I'm just giving you my opinion as your superintendent. I believe the people in this room, if they're taxpayers, they own the school.
Sure.
It's their school. And so I can see that taxes aren't going to go down in this project. We all know that. And as much as we can afford to be creative in how we offer these sort of programs, I think it makes all of our communities a much better place.
Helen?
So the kind of offerings beyond what the children you're educating would get is normal. I've been to senior classes, at NOS and so forth. So it's good that this tradition would be continued. The idea of it going on during the school day, my hair stands on end for a variety of reasons. For a whole lot of reasons. So this is just normal, what you're describing. It's a good selling point. I'm glad that there's going to be this much funding from other sources besides the towns. I'm glad that there's going to be some effort at making it energy efficient and green, but I think that things are proceeding so rapidly in terms of the environment and climate change and what our resources are going to be, that any kind of halfway measure with that is questionable. I think I was a little concerned that more of the budget wasn't devoted to really sending it way into the future in terms of efficiency. So that was number one. Number two, I understand that having new facilities that work well and have that good new feel to them, if they're beautifully designed, of course, lifts morale. And it can make things better if things work. The heat, everything. I don't mind an old building. I don't mind a dog-eared classroom, given that there's light and sound and things work okay. Sound is okay. It's not buzzing light fixtures and so forth. What I really care about is that the classes go well and the teachers are really well paid. Mm-hmm. And of course, it always kind of hurts my brain when you're spending this much money on a structure and not this much money on paying faculty and dealing with special needs kids and stuff. Excuse me, I gotta get something to drink.
Okay. All right, I think we get your point.
I would just add one point to that. I can tell you our retention levels of our staffing are at the highest in the state of Massachusetts. And that is very, very important, that we have continuity, consistency, and excellence in terms of what our teachers bring on an everyday basis. And I think, quite honestly, she brings up the issue of you need to see the condition of the campus. And when you see that, if you walk away, because we've had lots of tours on those Wednesdays, and we're hearing no one seems to be questioning we have a need. And the question is, what will the need be met with in terms of this plan?
Justina?
Madam Chair, through you, yes, I have recently, over the last 4 or 5 years, had many tours of Nauset from having children there. And I also have a comparison point because I'm dating myself. I was in the first class in the high school when the building was new. And so I remember it when it was new, and then that's my frame of reference when I went to various teacher events and so forth. And I can say that I feel it is really run down. The teachers are amazing, the kids are amazing, but I think the plant is run down. And I'm really thrilled about this this project. I think the school is amazing, and I know from having children and their friends who run the gamut from coming from disadvantaged backgrounds on the Cape all the way to perhaps better resourced families, and the lifeline it is into the lives of some of our local families that their kids can go to an outstanding high school like Nauset. It can make a real difference in someone's outcome in succeeding in life. I'm familiar with the AP Honors program, and I'm familiar with the Dropout Prevention program, and they're both outstanding, and they both are important to the community. So I want to commend Nauset for serving a wide range of needs in the students, and a strong, thriving high school can be a lifeline into a family that perhaps the parents are on welfare or have substance abuse issues, and the kids are growing up as best they can, and they need to be provided for life, have role models, and to have a chance of succeeding. So I think Nauset does an incredible job from college prep to dropout prevention.
One more.
Michael?
I graduated like 20 years ago and it was pretty run down when I graduated, to be honest. I mean, there were some classrooms with like windows that didn't shut, heat that didn't really work, and that was 20 years ago. I can't imagine how much maintenance has been done in that time, but I imagine the school's been sort of like dealing with funding issues and doing what they can. The point that I was going to make was about school choice, and if we need students to keep teachers teaching and classrooms full. It's a big school. The alternative to this, in my opinion, is to allow the school to run down to the point where it's not a school choice school, potentially, and we're not utilizing the entire campus, and we have dilapidated areas of the school because we're just not getting the funding from the state. So I would like to see the campus be improved to the point where people from other towns want to choose Nauset. We're going to wind up in a situation where there's only a few high schools on Cape Cod. There's just no kids, and unless we can somehow make it possible for people to move here with kids, I don't see any choice but to make Nauset a very attractive school choice school. And so I'm supportive of this, and I hope that there could be ways that sort of enhancing the community center aspect of that. I went to Chatham the other day, and it's got the most amazing community center. I'd never been in there. I went to a meeting there, and I was blown away. And we have this senior center, and it's great, but it's not a community center, a general community center for anything but mostly meetings. Well, it's true. I mean, if you go to Chatham, you realize what a community center looks like. This is not it. And the high school potentially can be that. And I would like to see maybe the school actually maybe utilize the campus for like programs that would actually be paid for outside of the school day to maybe offset some of the costs of operating the school to increase the budget. I don't know the potential for that, but if they can offer classes and teachers to teach classes outside of what's existing now at a cost, not an incredible cost, but to sort of help maintain the building and the structure and have some things like that too. Not that nothing should be free, but it would be nice to see if it could actually offer some college accredited level courses on Saturdays or something, some satellite program with a community college for people who are on the outer Cape and have families and maybe can only get to a class between 2 and 4 and don't want to commute, to the community college. I don't know. These are just things that are running through my mind about that. And I think the potential for it to be a larger aspect of everybody's life in the Nauset district is there. It's a big campus, and it can be a beautiful campus, and I'd like to see it.
So Mike, to your point on school choice, just for everyone here tonight to understand, We only, every year, every school in Massachusetts has to declare if they're going to go to school choice. And that's at all grade levels and so forth. We have, the last couple of years, because of the interest in coming to our school, we have limited the access to school choice only in the 9th grade at the high school, so that they would have 4 years of their experience at Nauset, and the 6th grade at the middle school. And so we could get, there is a certain number that we're looking for to have a robust program like you're describing, and taking full advantage of all the programs at that school. But right now, we're locked in on those 2 grades, and we're a very attractive choice for kids to come to. We have kids from Bourne to Provincetown who come in, so.
So if you're after 9th grade, you can't sort of transfer into Nauset from another school through school choice. You have to do it declared when you're coming in.
Real crazy, because that's a big transition year for families, and, you know, an 8th grader coming into the 9th grade. So, but we really want students to have a 4-year experience at the high school and a 3-year experience in our middle school. And it seems to be working very well for us. So thank you.
Good. Okay. Anything else you want to add?
Just one point, and we can go around. We'll come back any and all the times you need us.
Okay.
And to our citizens who are here and the citizens watching, if you have a small group or a group of people who would like a presentation, it's a matter of calling the central office and asking for the superintendent's secretary, and she will arrange a time that we'll send somebody out. I just looked at a PowerPoint presentation we did on this project for the citizens of our region, and we would be glad to come out and spend some time with you. We think it's very, very important that we do everything we can to inform the public about this project going forward. So please take us up on that. Chris?
One of the points is just, we have a website, so if you go to the Nauset School website, on there would be a link to the building committee website, and in turn, all the information concerning the project, concerning, I mean, you can spend years on it. There is a ton of information, so anything you really want to know is available on that. And just one other point, intergenerational learning is a big thing, and we have so many assets down here as far as just, between artists and writers and whatever. And we take advantage of it somewhat, but it would be good to take better advantage of it. And so part of the concept of this community school is doing that. And what form that takes is somewhat still in the formation, but, opening it is a community asset and a community resource, and we want to make sure that we take full advantage of it.
Good. No, I think it's great. I think you have a lot of support.
No? Well, listen, thank you very, very much.
Well, thank you. Thank you for learning about shellfishing.
Good luck.
Tom, if I can just ask you one question. What time are the tours again on Wednesday?
So typically it's 4 to 6
Okay.
on the hour, but
And people can just show up?
they should call ahead to the office and just say, I'd like to come down and see if I can get my friends and I on a tour.
Okay.
And pick it, it's on the hour, and it'll get done for you.
Okay.
Okay?
Great.
So
Thank you
much.
very much. Thank you for all the work you do. I know it's not easy. Great. Thank you.
I'll watch what I didn't see on the video.
Okay. I think you'll like it.
So moving on to committee appointments and board appointments, is Margaret Sagan here? Okay. Wait, are you speaking for her or leaving? Okay. Well, we've also, you're not on the planning board anymore. Okay.
I'll do both. I attend a lot of the open space committee activities and work with them. And Peggy Sagan would be a great addition.
Peggy Sagan. Oh, okay.
So,
I know her.
And looking at her qualifications on your application, she'd be a great addition. So.
Yes. So may I have a motion? Any other questions? I think we can move right to motion for this.
I move to appoint Margaret Sagan to the Open Space Committee for a 1-year term.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, unanimous. Thank you. And now, okay, should we save this and go on to some of the business?
Just my recommendation, I would move the bookstore restaurant up and
That's what I was going to do, like move the bookstore up and, yeah, because it should be easy, but you never know who's going to
never know.
speak.
And
So,
Tom and Kathy are here also, which is
Yeah.
item A.
and that's pretty simple, too. So, okay, we'll take the bookstore request for,
Where is that?
yeah, request for hour extension. So I'm going to assume that you want to extend your opening time for the whole year for what?
Good evening.
Oh, all right, I'll let you explain it then. Okay.
As you may remember, we were before this board requesting an extension for.
May I have an
hours.
identification, please?
Sorry, sure.
Who are you, please?
Please.
Thank you. My name is Albert DiNapoli. I'm the attorney representing
Thank
the
you.
bookstore. We have the owner, Carol Palante, here, and her son, Stephen Palante. We were before you in the spring seeking an extension of the closing hours from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. At that point, after a review, the board approved it and said they would like to review this after the summer hours to see if they would make this a permanent on. So we asked to be placed on the agenda so that the board could do that. My understanding that things went well over the summer without incident, and we're seeking that it would be a continuation.
So we did get a report from the police chief that there was one incident. I don't think it was, yeah.
The guy had to be subdued with a taser.
Oh, yeah, he had to be subdued with a taser. But
I don't
yeah, I don't want to get into that. I just want to say, I'm just saying there was one incident.
I don't think it was though during the 1 to 2 hour.
1:20 a.m. Yeah. So we can just, I'll open it up to the board comments.
So what we've learned in the meantime, since the last time you came before us, is that if we do this for you, we have to do it for anybody that asks, with a similar establishment. In other words, we didn't know that before, and we've, since you came before us in the spring.
Yeah, it applies to the whole town.
Yeah. The ABC advised me that Wellfleet is the only town that has authorized, first of all, the 2 a.m. closing. And if we extend it to one establishment, then we have to extend it to all, as you can't be selective and discriminatory. This is from the police chief. So this puts your request, which is reasonable, and thank you for coming back as requested, in a whole different light. And in other words, there are a whole lot of places in Wellfleet, not a lot, but enough, so that it would affect a whole lot more people who were abutters. You have a special situation there. You're sort of in a place where, more activity up until 2 wouldn't bother people who maybe were trying to sleep or whatever. But the fact that we'd have to allow other establishments to stay open that late if we allow you to do it means that I think we should make sure that other establishments and people that live near them are very aware of this before we decide. I think that's important, and I think if you were one of the other establishments, you might appreciate that, I hope.
Mike?
My only point is, how many establishments are even open till 1 in the morning?
I don't know.
2. And one of them's closed for the season. So there's one establishment, and that's the Bomb Shelter Pub. Every other establishment closes around 11, I believe, is the latest, everyone in town. So I'd just like to point out that there was no request from anyone, even the Beachcomber, subsequent to the bomb shelter asking. I don't really have a problem with a 2 a.m. Closing time, particularly if no one in town is asking. No one else doesn't want to stay open till 1.
Yeah.
If there were noise complaints, I may have a different opinion about it, or numerous issues resulting from it being open. I mean, that was the busiest time of the year, and it's busy. It's busy down there, and without incident, I mean, I feel comfortable extending it personally. And if there were other businesses open till 1, I might think about it more. But nobody wants to stay open past 11, and they certainly don't want to do it year round. So,
Justina?
Madam Chair, through you, Steve, you felt that it wasn't a big deal to keep order, because I see the incident happened at 1:30, you're right, so it didn't happen after there was one bad apple. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that the bomb shelter doesn't always have a crowd that's comes directly from the library, having been there before.
I've done, I think.
So you felt your company was able to keep order?
Yes.
I guess you wouldn't be asking to extend it if it had been a big pain in
Well, I haven't had any noise complaints. I have, this one individual, I threw him out because he was groping girls in my bar, and I asked him to leave. Then he came back and he wanted his money back, and that's when I called the police. He was already gone, and he left, and he only lived around the corner up on the hill. And the police what he did after he left my bar and came back, I have no idea.
And how many years have you been a bartender there?
42 years.
So you have some experience keeping order? Yeah, it's my understanding you run a tight ship.
So my question or comment would be, and it's also to the board, is I would have no problem extending this, say, to Columbus weekend, possibly Thanksgiving or Christmas. But like, who's really out at 2 a.m. in January and February? And are you even going to have workers?
Mostly restaurant people. They come in, they want to have a drink after work.
But even restaurant people close down, or they're not even open.
Because there's no place for them to go. And I'm the only establishment in town that provides a place for people to go.
Yeah, no, I know.
Say if you're at the Wicked Oyster and you get off work at 11:30, 12 o'clock, and you want to have a drink, instead of pounding a bunch of drinks because you're closing at 1 o'clock, they have a couple of drinks, they go home.
Yeah.
And it makes it a lot easier. And all summer long, I close at 1 o'clock. I stop serving at 1 o'clock, all right?
Okay.
And what I did is everybody left on an even scale. So I didn't have a bunch of people going in the middle of my parking lot screaming and hollering all night. So everybody left, a nice, slow pace. It actually made it real easy for me in this year, easier than in the past, because I did have an extended license.
Yeah.
And I use it to discretion, I mean, if there was, people that are getting a little rowdy, I'd shut down early. I do that anyways. And I shut people up constantly.
So you stop serving at 1 on a regular basis?
I mean, I leave it up to the option, but all summer I stayed open just till 1 o'clock. But I'd still like to have the 2 o'clock license, just, for like New Year's Eve and things like that,
Madam
Yeah.
Chair?
Yes.
May I just, I got an email from Kathleen who knew this was going to come up, and she asked me to read this out. So, Dan, I won't be at the meeting the 24th, and I am against extending the closing hours to 2 a.m. I do not wish this to be town-wide. Could you voice my opinion for me when this comes up so that other Board of Selectmen members know? Thank you, Kathleen.
But
Yeah,
sorry.
Justine,
Yeah, I had my hand up. So I listened to what Mike said, and I listened to what you said, and I'm a person who stays up late myself, but I'm quiet. And we have noise bylaws that are enforceable. In other words, that has nothing to do with you. And you can also have people being misbehaved and hard to be around in a drinking establishment at 5 p.m. In other words, the 2 o'clock in the morning thing doesn't really change if somebody's going to be a bad drunk, in my personal experience. Not that I've had your experience. So I just wonder if we could revisit this carefully every year. Okay? In other words, this is new. Other places don't do it.
Well, it's the state law, it's 2 o'clock.
Yes, I know, but
That new
what?
Encore, the new casino, they're open to 4 o'clock now.
What?
The new casino they built in Boston is open to 4 o'clock.
Yes, but we're not up there. We're us.
Well, it's a state law.
And so,
If I may, just to your point about, reviewing, you have the power to review this at any time.
yes.
To ask us to come in and review the license. So if there's an incident or something that causes concern, you can ask us to come in, and you have the power to modify the license at that point. So this is always reviewable, so just that you're allowing it keeps the door open for the restaurant to be able to keep literally their doors open till 2 a.m. at the bomb shelter if they choose to. And if there is an incident, you can ask them to come in at any time by giving them notice to come in and saying, listen, we've had problems, this is the issue, and this is how we want to address it in addressing this. But I think that because, you're going to have a renewal of the license in November, we'll renew it with a time, I think Michael's point is well taken, that there's no other places that are even open, or one other to one. And although you have to be fair to everyone across the board, you do have certain criteria you have to follow. If there's other restaurants that are closer to residents, you have to take that into consideration. You have to look at a public need. There may not be a public need for a certain place to open up to a certain time period. So you have other criteria that you can analyze if someone came before you. So I'm saying that it seems to have been okay. It's always something reviewable by this board at any time. And so we would just ask that it become a permanent part of their license, so when they renew in November, it can be a 2 o'clock closing, and if they have to report again to you because of some incident, we'll certainly be available.
Mr. Wolf, you want to go to the microphone, please?
Yeah, just speaking as as someone who often works odd hours, including late at night. I don't even drink alcohol, but I do enjoy a social life when it's available, and it's not uncommon for me to drop into the bomb shelter, partly because it is the only place that is open late, and sometimes it's just nice to be around people before I get ready to turn in, and it seems to me that if it is not creating a public nuisance, and it's evident that it isn't, I don't know why there would be a problem with this. Thank you.
Okay. Are we ready for a vote? Any more comments from the audience? May I have a motion?
I move that, there is no motion on here.
Well, we move to approve the
Yeah.
extension of the bookstore and restaurant
No, the bomb shelter
pub.
pub.
Yeah,
The
that's
bomb
okay.
shelter.
Yeah, I knew there's something, yeah, the bomb
license is
shelter
under the
pub.
bookstore and the restaurant.
Okay, I move.
Do you want it to be the restaurant too? They don't want to stay open that
But
late.
that's the name of the license holder.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Restaurant.
I've got
All
it
right, I
here.
got it. All right.
I move to approve the extension of hours for the licensee Bookstore and Restaurant, Inc., from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. For the next year,
Till their license comes up for renewal again.
until
Yeah,
the license comes up for renewal.
That would be November.
Yeah.
Oh,
We
Well,
have
we
to
would have to
renew
review it
in
anyhow,
November.
right? I mean, we'll probably,
2020. That's when the renewals have to be done.
can we do?
Can I make a suggestion?
Yeah,
Let's just renew it, and then we can review it at
Whenever-
during license for renewals. So when they come back
Yeah.
again for renewal, not this November, obviously this November,
yeah.
we can or we can't, but
We're gonna
in a
say yes
year,
and I'll say
unless
yes,
something happens, the following license renewal, we'd be able to review that and change the policy. Or if anything came up in the meantime, we'd be able to review and renew and change the opening hours as well.
Okay, I move to approve the extension of hours for the licensee Bookstore and Restaurant, Inc., from 1 a.m. to 2 a.m. until further notice.
I second.
all in favor? Yeah, okay, thank you.
And
for your time.
now I'm going to ask for something which I do with the entertainment applications for licenses. As a formality, would you please supply these applicants with a copy of our noise bylaw? Not that you wouldn't maybe be familiar with it, but it's just, there have been excuses made in the past, so it's going to get handed to you on a piece of paper.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And likewise,
And
thank
thank
you
you
for
for waiting.
Shellfish.
I know, isn't it amazing?
Really whetted my appetite for some well-flavored oysters right now.
Yeah.
Let's see what I can find.
So I believe, well, we'll take,
If you can
Yeah,
take
the
item
cig
B,
is- what?
if you can take item B for the host community agreement.
Yes, please.
IOB?
Item
B.
Oh,
B.
item B, okay. Yes, and we'll, the
We have a
cig-
guy
the
back there
cigars
who's
can
been a
wait.
real trooper, but I think he's getting tired.
Yeah.
He's
so-
tired.
Okay.
I'm tired. He's definitely tired.
Why don't you guys, if you
Okay.
want to come up?
So,
My peekaboo game only lasted
Both.
so long.
Dave's sleeping over there.
It's exciting to see a lot of them together.
So as you recall, they have presented to you before. We've had town council review and
You have some
everybody's
people
agreed on
come
a
up.
host community agreement, and that is what is before you now. So
well,
This-
my first question is, in this host agreement, I'm looking for it, is you're asking for cultivation and, what's the other word? Begins with an M. What are you asking for? Manufacturing. You didn't ask for that in your previous one, I don't
Oh,
think.
yeah, they
Did
did.
you?
Yeah, they,
Manufacturing really just means packaging in this situation. It doesn't mean,
So it doesn't mean making any products?
no, it's not an,
making
that's
any
an
oils,
extract,
any
that's an
food?
extraction. This is more,
The supply, jeez.
the state allows you to package and label
All right.
to be
so-
sold to a dispensary.
All right,
So that's what you-
I just want to to have that be clear, that it's not, because especially being in a residential area, cooking and
Yeah, we're not doing
kitchening and laboratories are a whole different thing.
No, you would need a special license for that.
Okay.
You just want the license to cultivate, and it's manufacturing in order to package our own thing to be able to bring it to the legal dispensaries.
And why didn't we approve this already?
no.
No.
No, we didn't approve it?
You have to sign.
Yeah. You, me.
So we can drive.
The three of us need to sign, you, myself, and Stephanie.
Okay, but otherwise, it's the same
The same thing that has been,
that you came before us for.
it's the same thing we came before, and it's also the one that we've been, our lawyer's been mailing
Okay,
back and forth.
and is updated.
With town
Okay.
council, yeah.
All right,
Been reviewed
good.
and approved by
Great.
council.
Anybody have any quick questions?
Well, I have whatever it's going to take. So, first of all, this is a little different than the establishments, the host community agreements, because you're going to be doing something slightly different. You're not opening an establishment. I had one question about a term. I apologize, I didn't look it up, I didn't Google it. What is a canopy? In other words,
Oh, canopy?
yeah, there's a term in here that I didn't understand what it meant. In other words,
Yeah.
That's the actual, so you could have a square footage of what we call the grow, but the canopy is actually the footage that the plants cover.
just like a forest.
Yeah.
Correct.
That's what I thought. That doesn't mean that there's going to be something over them. You're growing them outdoors.
No, yeah, the canopy
No,
just
you have-
means the term of the top where
got
the
it.
leaves touch.
Just like
But you have to have
forestry.
it enclosed.
No.
Behind a fence, but
Yes.
not covered per se.
Yeah, so wait. I
Is
have
that
another
new?
question just to confirm this for the audience and so forth.
That had to be an agreement.
We can sign this, but you still have to go to the ZBA and so forth.
Yeah, there's
And
there's
they-
many more steps to
Correct,
go.
and
Yes, and
then
they-
also back to the commission, which is the
Yes,
Commonwealth.
Yes, and the commission approves it. As, licensing board, we're the licensing board. We're not doing this as the licensing board because the state licenses you.
Correct.
And you have a lot more hoops to jump through. And
Correct.
thank you for bringing this local business here. The possible environmental effects of, rich soil and so forth are just the same as if you had an organic vegetable farm.
Which I have.
Yeah, so do I. But I don't have actually a farm. I have a big garden, which is very different. But the point is, same set of questions. It doesn't matter what you're growing. And issues of smell, which is very personal. I happen to like the smell of marijuana, even though I barely use it ever. That's something for the ZBA to have a nice hearing, and everybody gets to speak their piece, and they decide whether it's detrimental to the neighborhood or not. So I'm ready to approve this, but It's just me.
Any other questions?
I'd just
We
like
have
to
a
point
motion.
out that one more thing, that it's legal for people to grow personal consumption in their yards. So it's already happening all over town. So if you don't smell it, it's because it's not that big of a issue. Go ahead.
Yes.
Annie, I know that you've worked hard to get to this moment and have more steps to go, and I just want to commend your entrepreneurial spirit and dedication as a businesswoman, and I think that local jobs are always local businesses and local jobs are always good, so.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone want to make a motion?
I move to approve the marijuana cultivation host community agreement with Patrick Kemple and Annie McDonald, doing business as Sundog Cannabis Cape Cod LLC, located at 165 Payne Hollow Road.
Second.
All in favor? Okay, thank you.
I'm wondering, is there any way, if you've read it, that you would be willing to sign it so we can get this off to the commission tomorrow?
Sure, why
Do you have a printed copy of it?
I do.
Perfect, yeah.
We do.
And I've
And there's a form for the CCC that says you've signed an HCA in addition to the actually signed HCA.
The only
And I
sign-
am, just to clarify, I'm Stephanie Ryan, and I'm the representative of the co-op, so
Yeah.
that form also needs to
So
be.
the only signature we need on this is Janet Reinhardt's for some reason.
That's correct.
Yeah, I very much like it, not that I don't defer to Janet as a chair, haha. But,
Just let me sign it.
yeah, but it's so nice when we have all our signatures on here, just so that you know who was present. That's a good idea. And numbers, we support it.
I believe in Churro, did all the select board members sign, David?
Do I need to print it?
On our HCA in Churro.
Cannabis
did-
Commission, yeah, do I need to print it?
Every select board member signed in
Like-
Churro, so,
We have 4 out of 5 who can sign it tonight.
perfect.
Yeah, we got that. So I think I have to print it, right?
While they're signing it, I would also say that Courtney and I have fallen for your son. So anytime you need a babysitter, we are happy to
All the
step up.
time, all the time. Tonight would have been good, but
Contact- So you're going to fill out this, right?
Yeah, that's a lot more
I
fun
need
than
a pen.
shellfish, right?
Oh, yeah.
Did you get all those shellfish minutes, Courtney?
How old is he?
She'll go
I'm going to let you write in
We're in
your
the soil.
name.
yeah.
And, something else about this is it's greenish. It's green in the sense that it isn't going to be trucked far. Yeah, this is,
Very localized model.
We're trying to really just
Yeah.
provide only for the Outer Cape and ideally just for Wellfleet, if that works out for us.
yeah, well, more and more of that.
I think that's right, and you're welcome.
Think of all the carbon sequestration that'll be happening too.
Yeah.
Just want to put
Well,
that
it's already happening there, though.
Yes,
right?
it is. But the regulations are really
Ugh.
even more stringent than what we use on our organic farms. So.
Than the shellfishing.
Certainly than the shellfish.
Just clean up after yourselves.
You get it?
That's part of the regulation too, actually.
Yeah, so that's
It's a
all
good
of us that are
rule.
here.
Yeah, you have to have
For
your.
everything in life,
everything.
clean up after yourself.
By the way, for
Don't we
your,
learn that in preschool?
for your records, you might want to print out or get from Courtney Kathleen's statement to go with your archive,
Okay,
okay?
okay.
Yeah, to document this.
Kathleen made a
Kathleen
statement.
Kathleen didn't
She
have
didn't make a statement, that was the last.
It was about the bookstore.
That's okay.
That was,
Yes, and she would have been for
Thank you
us.
all very
sorry,
much for your time.
Thank you so much. Do I need
Thank
to
you,
sign
thank
that?
you, thank you.
Like in their presence?
Oh, Janet.
No, you're good.
I'm good.
Just
All right.
sign it.
I love
We believe
Wellfleet.
that we believe that you're going to sign it.
Thank you.
If there's any way you could send us a copy of this.
Yeah.
A signed document, yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you guys so much.
yeah. What's your name?
Good night, sleep tight,
Oh, yeah.
buddy.
Bye, buddy.
Yeah, I kept going like, what's, yeah, so, yeah, yeah. Yeah, good to see you. Okay. All right, moving on to the approval of the renewal of license agreement with Tom and Kathy Siglia.
We are going to postpone that until your meeting on October 7th, so you don't need to take any action on
Because
this
they're
one.
gone already.
Because what?
There's an article in there that I copied from the previous
Okay.
one that shouldn't have been in there.
Okay. all
And so
right. I just
Nancy
wanted to-
wants to make sure that we've got it corrected before that, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I know that this has been ongoing, that it could be easily approved. But okay, that's why I asked. Very good.
Okay, where are we?
We are now up to, geez, we're already
Planning
up to.
board?
No, yes, that's right. We skipped that.
Oh, good.
Discuss, deliberate, and take appropriate action to respond to the letter from the planning board. Yeah. So, Dan, do you want to address this at first?
So, as you're aware, on September 10th, you received an email from Judah Hearn that stated, "You must be joking. There is no way Jerry Parent is going to represent the town of Wellfleet in anything beyond its borders. If this ridiculous idea is pushed forward, I will start my assault on the planning board. Understood?"
So everyone's aware of that. And when I got that, I immediately emailed Dan and said that this should be referred to our lawyer, Koppelman and Page. And I hope this is all right, but there are a number of letters that have been referred and kept in my file from Jude that she's also threatened the planning board. Who else is she? I mean, she's definitely says inappropriate things. And so, Dan, I'll let you continue.
So the feeling is that this one crossed the line because of using the word assault. And in this day and age, I think everybody on the select board would agree that we don't condone that type of language. It could be construed as a threat against public officials. I had a call with town council on Friday to discuss the planning board's letter and Ms. Ahern's email. Carolyn suggested that the board discuss appropriate action regarding Ms. Ahern's email and make a statement that they do not condone the behavior and language. The word assault is not appropriate under any circumstances, and Ms. Ahern has threatened a group of public officials. The board should consider whether this is a threat that may result in violence and decide whether this threat should be referred to the office of the Barnstable County District Attorney. The select board could also write a letter to Ms. Ahern, just basically saying that they take this very seriously and they do not condone this behavior or this language towards any public official, or they could make a decision that they want to refer this to the Barnstable County District Attorney. The board has any option of doing this, handling how they want to.
Okay, Helen?
So for me, this letter was, this email that wasn't even addressed to me, was just the tip of the iceberg. I, having served on various committees and boards, have heard from Ms. Ahern before, and I have had to think very carefully about it. I think assault is arguably a word that is not meant to imply physical violence. It's arguable. And I think that curtailing people's freedom of expression is it's a very thin line to walk. But here's what I came up with. Civil discourse is essential to our government. However, no negative characterizations, which you could also describe as verbal abuse, and certain kinds of informal language that is meant not simply to express disagreement with vehemence, but to intimidate, threaten, and to stifle an exchange of differing opinions. It's counterproductive and it's distracting, and it's unnecessary. We got a document from Ms. Ahern alleging an open meeting law violation and we read and addressed it in, I think, our last meeting or the meeting before that. I forget. And it was full of conjecture. And it had the same kind of confrontational, intimidating tone. It wasn't simply, I perceive you as doing something which I think is wrong, and here's why, which we should all be able to listen to very carefully in public. If we've made mistakes, we need to hear about it. But insulting people and intimidating them and using demeaning adjectives is, I think, stepping over a line. It's kind of hate speech, actually, not as legally defined. And I think that we should simply make sure that every chair of every board and committee, whether it's a 3-person assessors board or, the zoning board of appeals, which has 9 people, understands that the minute anybody uses one derogatory term, steps over that line, that they are immediately cut short. And I think that is our best recourse. And keeping track of that, I wouldn't even let somebody finish a sentence if they said one thing like that.
So I would add that it is in, I didn't look it up, it's either in our selectmen's regulations, town regulations, or the state regulations, that there can be no personal attacks in a public hearing, in a meeting, and it is up to the chair to shut it off, as you just said. And I will just actually say this, that while I'm chair, Ms. Ahern is welcome to come to any meeting, but I will not recognize her, and I really won't recognize anyone who I feel has improper, impolite attacks on the committee and any staff also. We talk facts here. If we don't know something, we ask for more information. If we're angry because we misunderstand something, we don't get angry, we ask for information. In all committees, all public hearings, we need facts and not personal attacks, not emotions, not I believe this or you should have done that. We stick to facts. So in some ways, I think she should be made aware of this by a letter, but I'm sure she loves to watch the video, so she'll probably hear this now too. And there's other people in the past who have been aggressive and mean, and they too, there's just no place for it in public discourse. Anybody else besides Helen? Justina?
As I understand it, Dan reviewed the use of the word assault with our Copeland and Page attorney, and we do have the option of referring the letter to the Barnstable County District Attorney, and I would recommend we take that option. I know personally, I have tried to work with, Ms. Ahern has the best of intentions. I'm going to give her the benefit of the doubt. She's often well-informed, does good research, but her continued style of being confrontational and insulting and threatening is non-productive and often disruptive, and I'm afraid that I think that a stricter response is needed here. That's why I would recommend the referral to the Barnstable attorney, and then I think both Janet and Helen's additional thoughts on chairs implementing limits when the discourse isn't respectful are also a good option. But but I strongly feel we should refer it to the attorney, district attorney.
Thank you. Mike?
I agree with Justina, and I thought about it for a while because initially my reaction was that, the word assault was probably not meant in a violent manner, but then I kind of questioned myself as to whether I would think the same way if it were a man who had written it, and that kind of thought exercise, I think, made me realize that if it were from another gender, I may think differently about the word assault. And this fly's getting me.
It's getting,
It's
making
just
the
going
rounds.
right around. I'd think differently about the word assault in that context, and I don't think that we should, or I don't think that I should really discriminate by gender what was actually written. I mean, I don't know Jude Ahern, and I don't know what she's capable of, or anyone else. And the word is the word, and so it should probably be looked into. And I'm pretty sure that if it was a male that sent that, I would feel strongly that it could be construed as a violent, as a violent manner in which to use the word. So I kind of side with Justina on this, and
Okay.
that's where I'm at.
Well, I'll say assault is a violent word. You know, you don't really assault an ice cream cone.
We're
So-
accountable for, sorry,
Yeah.
Helen.
But I do, let's keep moving on, and if you have something new to add, but I think we're ready to.
It's in response, because we're having a useful conversation here.
Okay.
Okay, so the chair said, I agree with you. What I want is hardcore. I want facts. But if somebody expresses emotions, or somebody expresses things perhaps not that well, I want to keep people on topic. I want facts, but it's that they shouldn't do verbal abuse, negative characterizations
Right.
at all. And I have gotten language similar to this from Jude in emails, not all of which I've kept, but many, many times. And it's also a pattern of abusive language, that's built up. And that is the reason that perhaps we should submit this to a higher authority simply as evidence, but not just this one thing, but describing a pattern of abuse. And the Finance Committee had an issue with this, and that should be included. And that doesn't mean I don't want to hear from Jude Ahern. It just means I really want to hear from her, and I don't want these horrible distractions. It's
Agreed.
counterproductive.
I think we're all in
Yeah.
agreement. So, do you want to make a motion? Does Mike want to make a motion? Who wants to make a motion? Just to send a letter, send a report, send a complaint to the Barnstable County Attorney?
Yeah, let me try this out. What is the name of the authority, Dan?
The Barnstable County District Attorney's Office.
Yeah. I move that we submit this email that was received by the planning board, as well as evidence and a report on documenting, if possible, but simply reporting on a pattern of
You did it again, yep.
a pattern of harassment, perhaps, to the Barnstable County District Attorney, simply to go on record.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Unanimous.
And I apologize for that being a little bit,
Yeah.
This fly's been having a field day.
Yeah.
Oh my
yeah.
God.
I mean, it's, yeah.
Okay.
It's
Good.
worked its way around the table.
And to our distinguished guests.
I know, right.
Okay, so moving on to dredging update. Am I right on that?
Yes.
Yeah, taking things out of order. So, Dan, do you have the
So-
papers in front of you?
Where we're at right now is the Army Corps of Engineers has in their possession all permits that they need to be able to dredge the federal channel. It is expected that the funding is coming through in the federal government, and we received word from Craig Martin from the Army Corps of Engineers that they are expecting the dredging firm to be ready to start on October 1st of 2020. So basically almost exactly a year from now. So that would take care of the federal channel being dredged. This Friday, we have the Secretary of Housing and Economic Development, Michael Keenely is going to, Sarah Peak is bringing him to Wellfleet to meet with the dredging task force at 5 p.m., which Sarah had checked it out to find out that it was low tide.
Yeah.
So that he's going to come here and see for himself what low tide looks like in Wellfleet. And then as soon as we've given him a brief tour, we're going to meet in the harbor master's office and discuss what potential funding sources will be available when we're ready to start having the, the local portion dredged. So that meeting is posted, so if anybody wants to look on the website, it's on the 27th, Friday the 27th.
This Friday.
This
Yeah.
coming Friday, yeah, at about 5 o'clock we expect him. He's got a meeting in Provincetown, and he's coming here from Provincetown.
So could this be posted for all of us? Because I would be interested to go to that. In other words, if,
Yeah, we know what you mean.
yeah, so.
Yep, we
would-
will post it just in case a
Yeah.
quorum of the select board would
Yeah.
like to be there as well. so.
Thank you.
Yep.
It's sort of a site visit.
Okay, so, good, thank you, Dan. So moving on to 2020 goals, right, so selectmen's goals.
Okay, wait a minute.
Any comment, do we just want to, how do we want to do this? I at one point wanted to talk with the group about their individual ideas with their goals, but it's getting late at night. So do we want to make any changes or approve it and move it forward? Any comments on it?
What about
Justina?
if we approve it, and then you wanted to have a discussion, and we can put that on the agenda another time?
Even a work
Yeah.
meeting on all this.
Yeah.
This is something we should take up with all the committee chair, the department heads. Okay, so does everybody likes what's on here?
Yeah, I actually added a little something that would make that happen to the motion. Can
Oh,
I-
great.
Can I read it?
Yes, you may.
Okay.
Oh, wait, I'm not the chair.
Yeah, but we all count. Right. So I like this, and I don't mind the summary, given that we have now all received each other's personal sheets.
So do you want to make a motion?
Yes, I do. I move to approve the Select Board's FY 2020 goals as presented, amended, and as more specifically described in each individual Select Board member's list of goals. Right?
Second?
Yeah.
All in favor? Any comments?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, you want to make a
Okay,
comment? Yeah.
can we amend any of this in the future? I just wanted to add my initials to
Oh,
something
yeah.
that was.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Yes,
Then yes.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
As
and-
amended, approved
And it
as
sort of works like that
Good
anyway.
enough
Okay,
right
all
now.
in favor, say aye.
Aye.
So I did that too. I mean, I feel like every goal is all of our goals.
Yeah.
Sure, but there's a
this one.
What-
prioritization, maybe we can discuss it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we discuss it.
We'll talk it, again,
length.
we will have
Ad
committee,
nauseum.
committee meetings and department head meetings that need to be
Okay.
involved.
Okay, budget policy, right?
Yep,
This is the same
Once
budget
again, very
policy that
good.
you saw
Yeah.
before. We just added the line item that Helen requested regarding that the department heads and
Yeah.
committees should pursue grant funding whenever possible.
Yeah, they do that, but it also kind of makes it more official.
I think
Absolutely.
it's in their job description, or at least most of them.
No, it says
so-
they have to be able to do it or have
Yeah.
it achieved, whether they do it or not. It doesn't say
Okay.
they should actively
Okay.
do it.
So may I have a motion to approve?
I move to approve the fiscal year 2021 budget policy as presented by the town administrator.
Second.
All in favor? And Dan, is this something you came up with, or was this around before you
no.
arrived? Because I think it is really good. It gives people a very good idea of how we make the,
I took the framework
Decisions.
of what we had before and then expanded it and developed it a little bit
Yeah.
more.
But you're supposed to do this.
Yeah.
yes.
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
no,
By
I'm
the
just saying
way-
the format is really good.
This list of our year, I always have up in my office. I really find it useful. All the, deadlines.
That is good.
Okay.
Okay, moving on to 2021 annual budget and 2020 annual town meeting schedule.
I move to,
Comments or, okay?
oops, sorry. I move to approve the FY 2021 annual budget and 2020 annual town meeting schedule as presented by the town administrator.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you.
And for those watching at home, all of these documents will be on the town's website. The goals are usually under the Select Board's tab, but we'll also put it, actually, all of these are under the Select Board's tab. So if you click on the Select Board on the town's website, you'll be able to find all of these documents.
Thank you. It certainly is happening more and more to access things online. Okay, so the next one is the consent for the town administrator to be involved in whatever. Anybody want to discuss this or talk about it?
Yes, I feel that this board carefully and responsibly discussed any kind of situation like this, whether it's in the charter or not, when we were reviewing, renewing the town administrator's
And hiring,
contract.
yeah.
And we did a nice job of it. We, really pulled it apart and looked at it. And as far as I'm concerned, the town administrator or a similar employee who has a job description is, required to fulfill whatever's on it. And what they do in their own time is their business. And for example, it's true, it's in the charter. If somebody has something else they might be doing professionally for one reason or another, in one way or another, they have other work, we are supposed to sign something saying it's okay. Okay, as far as I'm concerned, we dealt with that already when we looked closely at renewing the contract, which I'm very glad we did. But I think that I would be happy to sign this thing, which is required. And I'm going to say something which is, if somebody who was the town administrator in another similar job, a department head, if it was made clear in their contract that they couldn't have another job or whatever, what if they had 3 kids? I mean, we wouldn't be raking somebody over the coals with that. And, frankly, that is work. So I'm going to say it again. What somebody who is working for us has to do is do his or her job. And what they do in their own time is their business. Absolutely.
Justina?
Madam Chair, Dan was transparent about his partners running a guest house, transparent about his involvement, minimal involvement, transparent with the selection committee when he was recruited and took the job, and then, as Helen said, rigorously we went over it in the contract process. So to my mind, this is a thoroughly vetted issue that we're happy to sign a piece of paper if we need that formality. And I might add that we're lucky to have a locally based candidate, many candidates for town positions. The high cost of housing on the Outer Cape is an issue, so I see it as a benefit that his partner runs a guest house because it means Dan has local housing.
Yeah.
Agreed. Mike, do you have anything to add?
I just can't even believe we have to even sign anything.
Right, good.
Unless it's detrimental,
Are we
I
signing
don't know,
one?
unless it's antithetical to his position in Wellfleet or has some sort of financial conflict, I don't see why we would even need to even know about it, to be honest.
Yeah, but,
It's a technicality, but it is
Sure.
in the charter that says you
Yeah.
should give a
I'm
written
not saying that,
approval, so.
that we
I
don't
tried-
have to do it. I just think it's
I
ridiculous.
tried
if we
with
didn't.
my partner to say that I couldn't do certain things around the house because it wasn't permitted by the town of Wellfleet.
Yeah,
and that
that-
did
Yeah.
not go over very
Yeah,
well.
really, please maintain the stability of your personal
And
life.
I have one last thing to say. I know I get emails on Saturdays from Dan. I get emails on
Yeah.
Sunday
Oh,
to
yeah.
the point where I feel like answering, please don't work on the weekend. So his work ethic is unparalleled, and we are very lucky to have you, Dan, as our town administrator.
Thank you. Thank
And
you.
So
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to say something else, which is, in the last season or so, I do not understand who anybody in the town administrator's job, I'm not personalizing this, could have been dealing with the loss of the major figures in our administrative and, our financial department and so forth, and not having an assistant town administrator. So I'm glad that things are,
We made it through.
yeah, and thank you.
still going. So I'm going to make the motion I move to approve consent for the town administrator to be involved in business activity related to a business he has owned since 2005. I would also like to move that the Board of Selectmen add a vote of confidence in our town administrator.
Is that what it says?
No, I'm just adding,
Okay.
that's what it says, but I want to add that we as a board are adding a vote of confidence, just a
Could we
little
do
extra.
two motions, because one of them is charter required?
All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
So can we just vote on the first one?
Yes, we
Can I
may.
second the first one?
Okay, yep. Second by Helen, all in favor? Okay, I know.
And
All right,
so-
and then I would like the board to approve a vote of confidence in our town administrator.
Second.
All in favor? Thank you, that's unanimous.
And now I'm going to say something diplomatic, which I truly feel, and it relates to a previous topic. I always appreciate it when people who are not on the board or in town government are attentive, and they say, hey, this is in the charter. I don't always appreciate where that's coming from, but I do appreciate attentiveness.
I agree, and I know what you're saying, and again, that harkens back to being nice and making sure that there's no intention of personal attack.
You know,
Very
it's
important.
when we were talking about the shellfish regulations and everything, we always need to be able to have a civil discourse.
Yeah.
We need to be able to disagree with each other, agree to disagree without any personal attacks. Just different people are going to have different opinions, and we always need to work on that. So.
Yeah.
And
But
I'm not
hidden
intimidated
agendas.
by vehemence, but hostility and aggression,
Right.
It turns people off.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
yes,
Yeah.
and that is why it's counterproductive and distracting.
Agreed. I think we all feel that way, and I think we all work at making Wellfleet a good, positive community. And I know our town administrator and our executive secretary and the staff works really hard at making Wellfleet a good place to live. We've done a good job.
Okay.
Okay, moving on. So this was presented to me by a woman who, second homeowner, two of them are second homeowners, and her daughter is on the board of the Mothers Out Front. This is actually, especially with all this climate change action in the last week or so, Mothers Out Front was mentioned as one of the big nonprofits or organizations that is really pushing for being aware of how fuel and its emissions affect our climate. So I hope you all read the resolution. I don't think it interferes with anything, and it's just us being in support of, climate change and asking utilities to transition to using cleaner and more usable, reusable energy.
Janet?
Mm-hmm.
So I like this, except that I think some of the language, there's one section which is a bit generic. In other words, it says,
Yeah, it is.
aging fracked gas infrastructure in other towns, including towns neighboring Wellfleet.
Yeah,
Do we have fracking infrastructure?
No, I actually told them to take this out and that it isn't pertinent. So if you want to strike that, that would be
Yeah.
fine. What is that? Is that like number 7?
It's 1, 2, 3,
6.
4, 5, 6. It's the seventh
Seventh one,
whereas.
yeah. So we could just strike that. I thought I caught all of them, but good.
And there's a typo on the
Yeah.
last page, second to last paragraph. Wellfleet Select Board is not 2 words.
Yeah. It always comes up, though, on autocorrect as 2 words.
Too bad, it's in the charter.
I'm just saying that, yeah. Okay.
And the abbreviation is SB, and seriously, it's in the charter, that's it.
No, I know.
Ah.
I'm just pointing out that, yeah, it's not in the Clouds dictionary. Okay, can I have a motion? Any other questions? Anyone want to move
Why
this?
don't you do the motion?
I move to support the resolution of Future Act House Bill 2849, Section 1940, an act for utility transition to using renewable energy as presented and authorized the board to sign.
As amended.
And as amended, and authorize the board to sign.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Okay, thank you. Okay, select board reports. So I'm naughty in that I didn't mention this before, but I do want to give this, I asked Courtney to email this to all of you, but I don't know if she did. I don't think she did.
What is it?
It's the one about the open meeting law and about what constitutes a meeting and what constitutes a,
Oh, I didn't get that.
okay, so I will either, I didn't know if it was legal for me to email you, so I asked Courtney to email you.
Well, I wasn't sure who
Right.
wanted to.
I know, I wanted the board to get it.
What is this?
So I'm going to read this to you, but then you'll also get a copy, all right? So this is over the confusion that has been caused by Select Board quorum going to meetings, events, other people, conventions. So, open meeting law, Section 18, under definitions. A meeting is a deliberation by a public body with respect to any matter within the board's jurisdiction, provided, however, meeting, quotes, shall not include, and I'll go down to B, attendance by a quorum of a public body at a public or private gathering, including a conference, a training program, or a media, social, or other event, so long as the members do not deliberate. Okay, so this means that it would be nice if we posted a quorum, whatever, a meeting notice, but we do not have to because it's not a meeting of the Board of Selectmen. Okay, and you're all going to get a copy of this.
Oh, well,
No, you're going to get a copy and we'll discuss it another time.
okay.
Okay? So it's not a vote or anything, it's just you will be getting a copy of this. And that's my select board report.
I have two reports. Madam Chair?
Yes, I'm sorry,
Okay.
yeah, go ahead,
just
yeah.
Permission. So I was invited by the Bike and Walkways Committee to meet with the National Seashore, to sit in on their meeting with the National Seashore about potentially working with the Park Service to add subsequent bike trails and maybe alternative bike trails in areas that abut or go through the seashore. And it was more I would say, the meeting was kind of taking the temperature of whether the seashore is willing to work with the town, if they're open to additional bike trails. I would say that my impression of meeting with the superintendent, Brad Karlstrom, was that the park does not have funding or resources to do this on their own. It's not a priority for them, but they are willing to work with the town if we have a concrete plan that looks good to them. The bar for creating new pathways through the National Seashore is quite high. There's a lot of permitting involved. Existing pathways, such as fire roads, is a lower threshold to improve those pathways. So there is potential. I don't know if it will wind up going nowhere, but I do hope that in the future we can maybe see continuous bicycle traffic through wooded areas secluded from major highways and roadways. And then the other also related report is that yesterday, the Concerned Citizens for a Sensible Bike Trail, or bike path, I can't remember exactly what it's called, that have petitioned the state, met with Julian Sear at PJ's yesterday afternoon, and I was invited to sit in on that meeting as well. And it was an interesting conversation, and Julian Sear's comments led me to believe that he feels that the I don't want to put words in his mouth, but the process from the DRC and the engagement with the community has been lacking. And he suggested that the select board have a conversation with the DRC or write a letter asking them to basically publicly engage with the process rather than just plow ahead. So that's my report. I don't mean to put words in the Senator Sears' mouth, but that was the...
So just to add information to that, and I'll speak to the concerned citizens and the bike committees, all along, the DCR and the DOT are coming back with an amended design. All along, we've been wanting to meet with them again, and I've told the Bikeways Committee that they're going to come before us either the end of September or sometime in October. They have to get a whole new plan going. So that has always been in the works, communication and amendment and modification.
I'll just add one more thing, not to deliberate on this, but this was directed mostly at DCR and not DOT, because
Right.
they do know the lines of
Yeah, 'cause
communication with DOT are much more open.
Okay.
But
Yep.
So, reports?
Yep.
Yeah, so a couple things. 4 of us were at the Select Board and Council Members Breakfast last, when was it? Friday before last. And there was a very good presentation by Andrew Gottlieb. Senator O'Leary, who was one of our senators, he's not a senator anymore, and Chris Scalacci from the DMF about the Massachusetts Shellfish Initiative. And at that meeting, briefly, sort of flying by me, and also at the subsequent Shellfish Committee meeting that I went to last Tuesday, I want to report the good news that the DMF has reinvigorated a shellfish advisory panel, which is entirely their creation, the DMF's creation. It's not a group of private citizens with the DMF also participating in it to sort of keep an eye on them. Those are my words, not the DMF's. And that really lifted my heart. I think we need some new appointments for that, but never mind, that's for deliberation. So I went to those 2 meetings. And I also had an exchange, which you can call a meeting, about the bike issue, the bike path and the whole issue, which is complicated. And that is, according to Lauren McKean, who is the parks planner, I didn't speak with her directly, but she spoke with a member of the Bike and Walkways Committee. There is precedent for the park to get funding through a process, and I'll be more specific about it later, that could help with financing this. In other words, this is not like, oh, we don't have the money and we can't do it. That's my report on that exchange, so
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah, and I think Governor Baker is making transportation a priority, and that's part of that. So it's in the works. It'll be a process, as Mike said.
yeah. And the name of that program, I think, is the FLAP program.
Yes, thank you. FLAP, it stands for something.
Good. Anybody else? Yes, Justina?
My report's really short. I just got back from a week in Maine where we put 2,400 miles on the speedometer and went all the way up to Lubeck and then down through the coast. And it's a lot like the Cape in some ways, and it's great to be back.
Did you go to any meetings while you were up there?
Many, many, many.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
With various restaurants.
Okay, so anything else with the Select Board report? Moving on to the...
I had
you have
one more.
Okay.
The Select Board Association meeting.
Yes.
We all attended. We haven't met since that. So I wasn't sure if that would qualify as something that is in the document that you had initially shared.
This one about meeting with the
about
quorum?
meetings, because that
Well,
was
that's
a
why I did it,
publicly
because-
posted meeting, but it was a little bit confusing.
So Helen was the one who brought this up, because Justina was the one who really wanted to go and said we were going to go first, and then Helen didn't want anybody to go. This is, except herself. Yeah, you
No.
did. Yes, you did.
No, I
You
said
that.
I
You
would-
said you really want to go, so nobody else could go, because it wasn't
No,
put.
I
She
didn't
did.
say
I know she
nobody.
did.
I said I have contacted Courtney.
I don't
as
care.
per- I don't think like
Courtney has her
that.
hand up.
So this, I'm going to talk to the clerk about this because we do get messages from other like state agencies that hold
Right.
meetings for selectmen. And I mean, it's really the clerk's discretion as to what should be posted if it's not coming from us. So I'm going to meet with Jennifer, hopefully this week or next, to discuss all of these types of meetings that come through, to just see what should be posted. Because, I mean, technically you are, if you're going, like Kathleen had said that at that meeting, you were just going to sit and listen to a presentation. But if you ended up discussing or deliberating anything, it's not, I don't know if, it wouldn't necessarily be discussions that are related to town matters, but you're all there representing Wellfleet. So it's kind of a interesting area that I'm going to discuss with Jennifer Conjal, our town clerk, and see what she feels is appropriate to be posted or not,
So let me
and
just.
how other towns do it.
Okay, so we can talk about this forever. I asked people at that meeting, I asked a number of select people who have been there and have been on other committees, and I told them that Helen was really upset about more than one person coming.
I wasn't really upset.
Well, did
So,
other
no,
towns
I
post
digress.
it?
Careful.
I digress. This is not our meeting, okay, so I'm going to reread this again.
No, yeah,
That if it's attendance by a quorum of the public body, including a conference, training program, or a media, social, or other event, so long as the members do not deliberate. We don't deliberate at those, okay? There's no back and forth discussion with us, so they do not have to be posted. Now, it may be nice to have them posted, but not, but, you know, there's a lot of smaller meetings too, and
that's what I'm going to talk to Jennifer about.
Yeah,
Just because it may be safer to cover our basis, if God forbid there was ever
Well,
anything that comes up, it's just, as
All
we've
right.
learned from past meetings, it's better for us to be
okay,
safe
we'll,
than
we'll
sorry.
we'll talk tomorrow, something about some other
It's
committees.
it's on a topic for one of the work meeting discussions. So.
Okay.
Yeah, so my thing is, I long ago learned what deliberating was. It's acting on something. And if you express an opinion and the other people are in the room,
Well, let me read the definition. I have it right in front of me. Okay? We're not going to discuss this. We all know what deliberation is. Okay? I want to, again, move on.
yeah,
But we know what deliberation is, so.
do we? It's discussing or voting on.
Oral or written communication, including electronic mail between or among a quorum of a public body on any public business within its jurisdiction, provided, however, that deliberation shall not include the distribution of a meeting agenda, scheduling information, or distribution of other procedural meeting, or the distribution of reports or documents that may be discussed at the meeting, provided that no opinion of a member is expressed.
But I expressed opinions.
The town clerk
Yeah,
and I will do
you're in
our research
violation.
and come back to you with
why I
her
have this.
decision on how we go about posting these.
Yeah, we'll talk tomorrow.
Yeah,
Point of order, this isn't on the agenda,
Right.
and
No,
it
you're
was
right.
originally started with.
Leads to our next thing eventually.
Yeah.
Which is my comment.
Okay.
Okay.
So town administrators report? Any comments? Pretty easy.
The only thing I'd like to remind you all is I need at least 3 people to go online and sign
Oh,
the LA5 under Gateway.
I couldn't do it. It said contact your administrator, and it was a phone number, and it was after hours.
it just was,
Mine, it didn't work for me.
Okay. I
Can
will,
we sign a piece of paper?
you know, I'm going to check. They used to allow us to do that.
Did
And
any-
this year, they said everybody
Yeah.
has to go on and
Did-
sign.
Did anyone else contact you saying they couldn't do it?
No. I haven't
Did
heard
anybody
from
else
I have to
try
say I
to do it?
forgot about, all right.
I
yeah,
haven't tried.
I have to
And I
say.
tried it
I
on
bet
my phone,
Mac won't
too.
let me. I bet it won't
So it
let me
says
on
I need a username and a password.
The clerk can get you that. We can do that.
Somebody gave me
Who
this.
who would,
Do that from the clerk.
all right.
The town clerk can
That's
issue
it.
you.
All right, so I should call her or email her, all right. Okay, I'm glad you said that, I forgot to mention that. Okay, I will do that in the morning. Okay, anything else about the town administrators? Okay. All right, topics for future discussions?
Okay, two things. Marijuana policy.
It's coming up when we're scheduling these regular work meetings. It's one of the first agenda items we will have.
Thank you. Second thing, so, I plow through the minutes, and there was our vote about what SPAT could use of town property for, the Oyster Fest. Or was it for the
crawl.
The crawl.
Yeah, and there was quite a lot of discussion about our little parking lot next to the Masons. But guess what? In the motion, we didn't approve the town parking lot next to the Masons lot when we okayed the other two. So,
What do you mean,
I
okay,
think
the other
because they
two?
decided they weren't going to use that lot, it's just for satellite parking. Their main tent and bathrooms are going in the town hall parking lot, so they weren't requesting use of that lot.
oh, I didn't catch that they,
I
know.
think they wanted, because
No,
I
they-
remember,
They wanted to use the town hall lot. You guys tried to push them to use the Masons lot. They said that wasn't conducive to their needs. They only
Right.
wanted to use the town hall lot.
okay,
So
wait,
the
you're
town
saying the
lot next to
town
Masons-
hall lot being up by town hall, not the town lot?
Yeah, the town hall lot is what the one they wanted to use, isn't it?
No,
think so.
no,
If
no,
it's
they
one
wanted to
next to
use that
Masons is a
smaller
town
lot.
Well, the one you approved, is the one,
We only approved 2 town lots.
I think they know which ones they're gonna be using though. And if
Yeah.
not,
Yeah,
Gene
but-
and
well
I can
then-
discuss it with them, but it's not their first time doing this. They know they didn't wanna use the Masons lot itself, and if they wanted it on that strip, then yes, the lot next to the Masons makes sense. Their tent's only gonna take up 4 spaces. They know about all that stuff, but if you wanna bring them back, you can, but I think they're aware
I'm
of what
just
you
saying
said they
that
could use.
if they want to use that and we haven't approved it,
Gene and I can go back and look at it.
I don't know what the legality of this is. I just caught it, okay?
Gene and I can look at it though, for sure.
Yeah, I just went through the minutes, so
Helen, I've been through them 5 times. so-
I bet you have.
Okay, anything else with the minutes? Oh, future discussion, sorry. Okay. And I think Courtney, this is for future discussion, has sent out an email requesting when we want when we want work meetings.
No,
Just send it to me and
I was just
Justina, I
no.
mean Kathleen?
No, yeah, yes.
Okay.
I asked you to just confirm that's what we wanted. Kathleen has confirmed a time, so we will be sending out a memo to the board stating these are the next 3 working meetings and the time.
Do you know what the time is?
Hold on.
We discussed the last meeting, the 3rd Tuesdays of the month for
Yep.
October, November, December. You agreed to let Dan and I figure it out, and you would all be conducive to it. If you can't attend, you can't attend.
So what time did you come
So,
up with?
2 o'clock.
Okay.
Okay, so when?
The 3rd Tuesdays of October, November, and December at 2 o'clock. The one for December may change, though, because we
Hold
have a
on.
joint meeting with the Finance Committee, and so it may be conducive to just have that before the meeting. If you would just please hold off on putting it in your calendar until we send you an email stating this is when they're gonna be.
Okay, let's not have serial meetings on the same day, please.
This is what we discussed the last time, and that
Yes,
was-
but I don't remember agreeing to it, so that's another
The
matter.
board asked Dan and I to figure it out, and we cannot work around 5 individual schedules of everybody's lives to make a meeting happen every month. So if you can't attend, you can't attend, but we will discuss it.
No, I disagree with that, because you cannot willfully exclude any member of the
Not
board.
willfully excluding anybody.
Yes, you are. What if I had an operation that day and I'd say, I can't
Then
do
you
it
can
then?
tell me that when we schedule it, but I can't schedule meetings around Mike's tides, I can't schedule meetings around Kathleen's work schedule, I can't schedule meetings around Janet's classes that she does. If we have 3 people in a quorum there, then that's what we'll do, but we'll discuss
We
that.
are working on this,
Yeah.
so let's
Okay,
just leave it
and
at that right
Courtney,
now.
I
So-
did it for years, it's possible, okay, respectfully.
Helen, just a little
Okay.
bit of respect for what we're working on for you. Yes.
I did it for years.
Okay.
Next item, please, Janet.
Anyone with more future discussions? Nope. Vacancy reports, obvious.
This is what my comment is about. I had emailed you.
Oh,
You'll
yeah.
notice that it's changed from correspondence and vacancy reports to just vacancy report. This is because of like 2 reasons. One, there is no correspondence log being kept. There hasn't been in a couple years. I don't know how to fix that or how we're gonna change that. So in the meantime, unless an item is included in the packet, it cannot be discussed at the meeting. So technically, Janet, that open meeting law thing, I didn't send it out in time with the packet. It shouldn't have been brought up.
I know.
If
I
there's
just
an
wanted to
item that
mention it.
comes in through correspondence via email or a letter that you would like discussed at a meeting, you need to let me know prior to the packet being posted, and it will be included as an agenda item so it can be discussed. There have been some letters that have come in that have been discussed at past meetings where they weren't included in the packet, so the people involved in those letters did not necessarily have the knowledge that it would be brought up and were able to come and defend themselves. So just to keep things kosher and in line with everything,
Yep.
if there's correspondence you want to discuss, let me know and I'll put it in the packet.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and now, minutes?
Did we all get to take a look at them? I did them in time.
Yep, I looked at them.
And how about if I move to approve the minutes of Tuesday, September 10th, 2019, as amended?
Second.
All in favor? Thank you. Thank both Courtney and Helen.
And everybody else who read them.
And before we adjourn, I just want to say that somewhere in the news, I read that, I think it was, whatever they're called, Barnstable's Selectmen's meeting went until 11:15 the other week. And they
Barnstable
started
Town
6.
Council actually has a line in their charter saying they can't go past 11 unless there's a specific need. So they probably had good reason to do so.
It was about the pumping
Yeah,
station.
But they have a
But I
line in
just
their
thought,
charter saying they can't go past 11.
oh, yeah, we're going to be dealing with that in some years with their
Pumpkin?
plan. Pumping,
Oh,
pumping,
okay.
yeah. Okay, did somebody adjourn?
I make a motion to adjourn.
All in
Second.
favor? Thank you.
Ah.